busy times.
Yes. So there's a panel discussion.
You sent questions?
Yes, today. Those are the questions that are going to be posed so that you. No, like
I don't have time to.
right.
Well, I mean, I guess I could, but I'm trying to focus on.
Yep. It's one of the hardest parts about balancing public work and family. Number two, outside of private protection, God doesn't have to personally pray for you. The Bible says that we weak, rejoice with us. Your personal need to increase the experience that we can rejoice over. So just it's connecting to the Christians, not hey, what do you think about AB, blah 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 blah. It's we're trying to build foster relationships. So
It's just what's in my heart. It's not like a study.
no, yeah. You, Doug, Jim, James, Corey.
Doug?
We have our city council from here, Chico Paradise, county supervisor. No, the city council. I did though. I was possibly the vice mayor.
Sorry guys, my break takes a little while. I've been working with kindergarten for years.
Well, then this won't be much of a stretch. I've been pouring concrete over at the new fire
I
stations.
was wondering if you have time to do that too.
Not really. I had to leave my crew there with a full truck of concrete. And, yeah, not good.
I know, it's hard.
That concrete gets hard.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to juggle. That's like
Yeah.
I still teach.
Yeah. I keep trying to quit, but they keep telling me I can't.
No, you have too much knowledge to share.
Hello, Marcia.
That's why I still teach. It's been 48 years.
Yeah.
I've been teaching since 1970. Lifetime graduate is 75. But I've been teaching since 70.
I've been alive since 71.
Wow. Do you teach preschool teacher? Yeah, no, I teach them.
You were born in 78?
It was like,
I was in junior high.
I know, it's not like it's a school.
I think I was a freshman. 78.
Yeah, see, I had it. I always tell the kids, especially when the football's going on, and I can always say, well, this night is definitely not. Just like, it was really born in San Francisco.
Oh, there you
And that's San Francisco.
What? In the U.S.
Oroville
or
Mercury.
U.S. or the U.S. or the region, California?
Congratulations.
Oroville.
Time goes by fast. How many children do you have, Scott?
2.
can be. I can make a motion. I'll make 2 motions, go out of here and fly to it.
Decide or not to meet. We, for, we decided. Good afternoon, everybody. We'd like to call this meeting to order. Will you stand with me for the pledge? Salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I think it's fitting, before we move on with this meeting, to have a moment of silence for the loss for Gary Emberlin, who used to be part of this committee. We have a moment of silence for him, so if you please join with me. All right. Can we have a roll call, please?
Member Fowler. Here. Member Pittman.
Here.
Member Reynolds.
Here.
Member Carter. Here. Member Thompson.
Here.
Member C. Here. Member Hayes. Member Steindorf. Member Zeitler.
Here.
Wonderful. Well, the first point of business today would be in the selection of the chairperson and vice chairperson. So I'm open to whatever this council wishes. Currently as the chair can hold I've been here for 1 year, can do 2, but have no ambition necessarily to sit in this chair. So if anyone would like to.
Well, I'll move to nominate Mr. Thompson to be chairman again for another year.
I was actually going to do the same thing to you.
That's why I spoke up.
All right, we have a first and second.
You have to forgive me, it's my first time up here.
You push, there's the Y-E-A is yes, N-A-Y is no.
And we don't have to turn.
Motion carries.
All right, motion carries. Thank you for your confidence. As well, we need to select the vice chair. Do we have to have, from the vice chair, should we split? Maybe you guys, doesn't have to be, okay. Looking for a nomination then.
I'll nominate David Pittman.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Just as a point of
Motion
question.
carries.
Thank you. David, how long you been around the SBF, just out of curiosity?
Well, it goes back prior to the signing of the agreement in 2006. Huh?
Before it was formed.
Oh, yeah, it's before it was formed, yeah, essentially. So I want to say the beginning of the license discussion, which took 10 years. And then the settlement agreement was March of '06. And here we are today. Yeah.
It's good to have you back on the council and on this committee, David. Mr. Pittman. All right, so we, at this point, need to recognize those individuals who wish to speak on agenda items. Do we have any, Madam Chair, do we have any?
I have one for agenda items or non-agenda. For non-agenda, I have none. For agenda items, I have one speaker for item C.
All right, and C on 5C, is that what you're saying?
5C, yes.
Okay. Well, if anyone would like to speak, we do encourage you to go over, you do need to fill out a blue slip and turn that in to the clerk here, and we can hear you on those matters. On the consent calendar, do we have any motion to receive the consent calendar or to pull any items?
Without any discussion, I would move that we approve the consent calendar as agendized.
I'll second that.
I'll second that.
A lot of technology up here.
Motion carries.
All right, moving right along. At this point, we have presentations and updates. I believe we have a presentation today.
We do, if Ray is available with Upstate Community Enhancement. Yes. You're ready.
All right, thank you guys. And,
I don't think your mic's, there you go.
how about that? Oh, there we go. Yeah, well. Alrighty, again, thank you. And it's always nice to be up here and kind of do this every spring, a little bit review of what we've done. Even though it says 2019 on the report, it's actually reflecting on the 2018 events. Upstate Community Enhancement Foundation, 16 years now, 501c3, and we started this contract. I believe this is our 9th year in the SBF contract, and a lot of things have changed, a lot of things have developed over the years. Upstate's been around since 2001, and really acting as not just a member of the California Arts Council, but also an incubator organization. We helped start the Chico Air Museum, for example. They were an incubator project of us, as well as a lot of other nonprofits that come through and are able to kind of start getting their legs. I just found out yesterday that another group we worked with called Uncle Dad's Art Collective just got their 501c3 status yesterday. So again, nice thing, very broad paintbrush as far as what we do and what we can do for that. In 2018, these are the 4 events we had. Unfortunately, the Wildflower Nature Festival was not held due to reconstruction of Riverbend Park, so that will not be in the report this time. It will be in next year's. So, and I'd like to also point out some of the new logos that were developed through the Downtown Business Association for the Parade of Lights and Feather Fiesta Days. And if you were driving on Oroville Boulevard somewhere around 11 o'clock today, you might have seen me hanging up some large banners. They're appearing throughout town today, and we'll have one going across Montgomery Street here real soon. And again, that funding for those banners came from that NOFA that we applied for. And we were able to develop signage for the Wildflower Nature Festival as well. We'll also have them for the fireworks and for the Parade of Lights. Our time allocation, for the most part, this is kind of a rough estimate, 65% Salmon Festival, 15 Feather Fiesta Days, 10 Parade of Lights, and 10 fireworks. Again, that kind of depends on what's happening, if there's any problems going on. And then we also attend the monthly City of Oroville tourism meetings that I didn't put on there. So last year, 4 events, 39 meetings, 25 sets of minutes, in-kind services, $76,000, almost $78,000, over $52,000 in cash, 56,000 attendees. We did have some weather issues last year, and things were down a little bit, but they continue strong. E-Blast, you'll see that 160,000. We do magnet giveaways, print brochures, and partnering organizations, which I find is always an important aspect into working with the community. Is to keep developing that and developing relationships and collaboration. That's really been our key to success. In 2018, we were at, our contract is for $30,000. It reduces by $15,000 every year until it reaches 0. The idea is to build up funds to be able for this position to be self-sufficient. So last year was $28,500. This year it'll be down to $27,000, I do believe. Attendance, Feather Fiesta Days, 16,000, was down a little bit. We usually average about 20,000. Fireworks was way up. I think the year before it was, the 10,000 was the first year, and we're looking for an even bigger crowd this year as some of the other local displays are not taking place. Salmon Festival was down a little bit. We had some reduced funding for advertising, but that money is back on, and we expect to see that go back to 25,000. And Parade of Lights always depends on the weather. If it's a great forecast and it's 68 degrees, we're going to get 10,000. If it's rainy or something like that, it reduces a little bit. But still a nice average overall. Again, one of our biggest things is collaboration and creating partnership and development. So I put a bunch of logos up of our media partners, and every one of these organizations gives us a dollar for dollar match. Now, the only year we don't get it is in an election year when their media spots are much higher. So again, we really couldn't do it without them, and it's worked out great, and they become sponsors as well. As far as media and advertising, you can kind of go through the list: 600 TV ads, 700 radio ads, 21 print ads. Our Facebook has always been really strong. Each one of the sites we have has over 2,000 likes on it, so that's a great way to continue reaching out to the public, and it's also extremely economical. We also arrange interviews, public relations, and those kind of things. Matter of fact, we'll be doing an interview Thursday night on the radio for Feather Fiesta Days, and be on News at Noon next week as well. Biggest partners, of course, are the community. You guys right here. And our big ones, of course, are the Chamber of Commerce, Feather River Parks and Rec, Oroville Downtown Business Association, DWR, City of Oroville, and Recology I put in there just because they stand up every time we need something. And for all these, and not just these organizations, but they provide services that these organizations couldn't stand alone on if they have to pay all these things out. And DWR, same thing with porta potties. Very important when you have 20,000 people together. So keep the service going well. We also want to thank our community partners, and these are organizations that might not work in all the events, but are definitely mainstays in the other ones. Exchange Club, Oral Dam Cruisers, Rotary, Forbay Aquatic, CHP, State Parks, Native Sons, Kiwanis, Department of Water, Fish and Wildlife, Oroville Hospital, that's been a major sponsor for a long time with us for Salmon Festival and also for the fireworks, and of course the Oroville Inn. In-kind sponsorship, this kind of plays right into the groups we work with. So this is money that has been leveraged, over $13,000 for Feather Fiesta Days, almost $5,500 for the fireworks, over $20,000 for Salmon Festival, and almost $8,000 for the Parade of Lights, totaling $46,925. Income. Through some of these, we have sponsorship. For instance, for Feather Fiesta Days, we brought in $13,500. That money went directly to the advertising that we leverage on those things. Also, the fireworks. In that fireworks money is also the $15,000 to Spyro Spectacular. That is the fireworks contract. That this particular event's a little unique because Upstate Community Enhancement Foundations acts as the contractor with the fireworks. Rotary cannot have a contract with a fireworks display. So we step in at no charge to Rotary. The money they raise, the $15,000, they turn it over to us. We turn around and pay it out, and it goes down to the penny. And as much money as we make is kind of how big the fireworks display gets that year. So, but a good baseline at $15,000. Over almost $31,000 for Salmon Festival and $2,500 for Parade of Lights. Over $51,000 in income last year. Expenses, we. Again, most of these wash over where you'll see it's just about the same amount. The only one that was down a little bit was Salmon Festival. Again, we had some funding issues last year, and we're able to take care of that this year. So we were down about $1,800, I think, overall comparatively. Sponsorship. So again, this is what we're raising for each particular event and kind of shows across the board. Last year was a great year for the fireworks. I know that the Rotary did have a surplus of funds last year from the big fundraising they had the year before. And during these events, we also make donations back to the community. Probably the biggest creator of that is the Salmon Festival. So you'll see the Feather River Nature Center got $5,300. Kiwanis Club, which is the Key Club, which are all the kids that help us work that event, almost $500. Lake Oroville Bicycle Organization, LOBO, I believe that stands for, $125. They help us with the bar. And then the Oroville Downtown Business Association, we were able to donate $250 during the Parade of Lights. And the Lineman College, which are our mainstay for our volunteers for these organizations. Every year, the Lineman College, each class does a kind of a barbecue fundraiser at the end, and each class is tasked with raising those funds. So we found a nice way to help encourage those guys and get them down the line, and it's worked out well for all these organizations and events. And of course, the SBF, because none of this would be possible without you guys and the vision you have for this. I do have a brief video. Let's see if I can get this to escape and get this going here. I'm having some technology issues here, but if you stay with me here a second, let me see if I can get this off screen. Does anybody have any questions while I'm doing that? More than happy to field some.
Let me make a comment, too, to add about the fireworks discussion. I serve in Rotary, as some of us do. Some of you have copies. We do have a funding request is out. We're not, the Rotary Club is not making a direct request for funding from the SBF, although it'd be nice, as we have to put together at least $15,000 for the contract, which our funding has begun, but the SBF is also kind of a co-sponsor of the fireworks, and I just want to open the door to make sure that as we support it, our symbol should be on the posters and those things that come forward as the media. So, I mean, we've done it before in the past, but I've never really asked the commission to stamp of approval about being a sponsor of the fireworks event. You do it already by way of raise contract, so.
Yeah, we include the SBF logo on everything we do.
But also, if you know of someone that's willing to donate to the fireworks, we're open that door. As a Rotarian, I've got to make sure to make that statement. Otherwise, the president will somehow or another find a way to make me recognize that fact if I fail to do so. Go ahead, Ray.
Okay, I think this is ready to go. Let's see if I can get this going. I had a little fun with this, and we've done this in the past, and I hope you enjoy it.
Oroville, California. A river runs through it. Fish are jumping. Flowers blooming. The music's hot. The kids are cool. The band plays on. Cars that shine. Kids that glow. And pets on the go. Historic sites. Museums. Kids rising up. Acrobats. Things you'd expect, things you wouldn't. Salmon, oh yeah. Grilling, people chilling. Communities giving back, and colors on the go. Things are always popping in Oroville. One more thing. Pride. A whole lot of community pride. We'll see you next time in Oroville.
Gotta get Claudia in there.
Very good.
All right, thank you guys. Andy,
Oh, that's good.
feel good? All right. Thank you so much, and for the Fiesta Days, those banners are going up. We got one sitting in the corner right here, I think, actually.
Okay. Thank you, Ray.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda, number 5. I think we have, Jordan, you want to speak on this?
Yes. So number 5, we broke it into A, B, and C. Our first one is going to be stage. We're going to have Jim Mull come up and speak with you guys. These 3 are coming back from our 2018 NOFA. Stage is giving an update on their budget proposal and a little update on the funds that we already allotted for them. And then we're going to have a presentation from Tony Catalano from Feather River Center. You guys had requested they come back as well with some updated information. And then we have Randy Murphy with Feather River Recreation and Park District on a proposal as well. So if we could have Jim come up for our first one. Jackie, could we do a 10-minute timer for presentations?
Oh, wow, you're on it, Mr.
There you go.
Unless you go.
Just in case we have,
Yeah.
just in case we have discussion as well. I'm sure you guys will have some questions as well.
Well, thank you. First of all, I want to express the condolences of our group and personally to Kent and to Marcia for the loss of Gary Emberlin. I know the last couple of years had been very difficult for him, but I know he always had the best interests of the district and the community at heart, and I know he'll be missed.
Thank you.
My report today is a revised project report based on your committee's grant of $638,000 in January. It's also a request for consideration, permission, forgiveness, and additional funding. A great deal has changed since your grant in January. It's clear now that the most critical element that we had in our budget, the replacement of the theater roof, simply can't be accomplished with the funds allotted. I'll detail that in a moment. I'll also be asking the committee to consider a counter-proposal this afternoon. The counter-proposal will accomplish all of the goals that we set out in our original request in January, including the most critical element, and that is the theater roof replacement. Incidentally, the roof replacement includes significant upgrades to the theater's insulation material and the solar array to address savings in utility costs. In addition, the roof replacement addresses the drainage and scupper systems, repair of the south-facing tower wall, and the restoration of attic fans. We're also going to block the pigeons from getting into the place. Our initial request in January was $1.5 million. At the time, we estimated that would be enough to address the critical issue of replacing the roof. Since the theater is owned by the city of Oroville, we're subject to prevailing wage restrictions. We advertised the project for 45 days. 4 contractors did come and do the walkthrough with us. However, none of them submitted a bid. The issue was further complicated by the increase in material costs due to the campfire and a rather short supply of contractors who were also dedicated to the rebuilding in Paradise. Verbal estimates that we received from 2 roofing contractors who did not bid on the project estimate the replacement price tag at close to $900,000. Neither of the local contractors would bid on the project because it was prevailing wage, so these are their best estimates. Our stage maintenance team has developed some short-term solutions for patching the troublesome areas of the roof that will see us through the spring of next year. They are, however, just that, short-term solutions. The cost of those short-term fixes are estimated at $49,000, which can be allocated from your January grant funds. Our original proposal also included the upgrade of the solar panels, but we postponed that until a permanent solution to the roof is achieved. The solar upgrade is critical to our ability to maintain viability of the theater in the future and to manage the utility costs, but it doesn't make sense to upgrade the array now, only to dismantle it when the roof needs to replace and put it back in place. In the meantime, we have rearranged the priority list that we presented to you in January. Last Thursday, our stage board signed a contract with a company here in California that specializes in redesigning and reconstructing marquees. This is a picture of how the marquee looked at the State Theater in 1953. That's how it will look by the end of this year. The original marquee is no longer in existence, so the restored marquee will be redesigned and custom built from scratch. The project will also include the necessary structural, engineering, and electrical upgrades necessary for the new marquee. It will provide a highlight to the downtown area during the day and will have a stunning effect at night. The State Theater, once again, will be the jewel of the downtown district as it was described in the opening day press release in 1928. Coupled with that will be the ongoing restoration of the theater lobby. That's the first impression, of course, that patrons have when they come through the front door. We've contracted with an artistic restoration specialist who worked on the revamping of the Paramount Theater in Oakland. That's a theater that was also designed by Timothy Pfluger, who designed our State Theater. Phase 1 of the lobby restoration will cost nearly $120,000 and will include, among other things, commercial carpeting upgrades to replace the patchwork of carpeting, linoleum, and tile. It will also include the restoration of small murals on the building columns. And as a side note, you may recall that the Oroville City Arts Commission recently dedicated $30,000 in funds to Stage to provide for the restoration of the large mural that is above the staircase as you walk in. It's on the north side of the building as you walk into the lobby. We have also reserved funds from your grant for hazardous materials mitigation. While we did fund an assessment of hazardous materials 5 years ago, it did not examine any potential issues we might uncover during the restoration process. We want to be prepared for any eventuality in case that shows up. We also have postponed the $250,000 upgrade at this time to our sound system, again due to funding shortfall. So ladies and gentlemen, first of all, thank you for your consideration. The forgiveness I'm asking for today is the inability to complete the critical element, the theater roof replacement, at this time due to funding. The permission I am requesting of the SBF committee is to accept our revised priority project, and the request that I'm bringing to you this afternoon is for an additional SBF grant in the amount of $562,000. This plus the matching funds that we have received from the RDA will allow us to complete all of the projects in a timely manner on the original proposal that we submitted in January. I came in under time. I'll be happy to try and answer any questions.
Member Pittman?
Yeah. Jim, when I look at the marquee here, are you talking about some digital
Yes.
informational display? Is that?
Good
Go
point.
ahead.
Thank you. Yes. The new marquee will have first of all, it will be LED lit.
Okay.
The use of neon is very difficult to redo. LEDs will be very efficient, and it will be surrounding the building, and it will be electronic, so we will hopefully eliminate the need for someone to get on a ladder and change the lettering on the marquee. Incidentally, the company that has done this provided us a portfolio from all of their projects around the state of California. They believe they can have that installed by the end of this year.
Because my thought was, beyond just the activities inside the theater, it might also be a nice board for the downtown business district to post information.
It certainly would be, because there are
your thought pattern or not.
certainly would be times when we don't have events that are immediately coming up, that certainly the DBA could use that. We have a good working relationship with the DBA. I don't see that as a drawback or a negative or a difficulty to overcome.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Member Reynolds?
Hi, Jim. If the city leased the building to you, wouldn't you be able to get around the prevailing wage aspect of it? Because it's only prevailing wage when it's taxpayers' money. Because I do a lot of prevailing wage.
I'm going to turn to my consultants on the issue who are here.
I believe California contract law states that as long as a public agency owns the property, prevailing wage applies.
Yeah.
However, if it's private funding, then it does
That's
not.
what I mean.
But this
It's
isn't
private funding. Well, this isn't, but if you were to come up with some private funding, you'd be able to say
I
something.
believe this is private funding.
Is it?
It's not taxpayer money.
It's
It's
not
not taxpayer
tax-
dollars.
That's right.
So why would you be under prevailing wage?
We were under the impression that the supplemental benefit fund did come from the state of California.
State water contractor.
Contractors.
So, I mean, this is a legal question we should solve, but I think it's worth pursuing.
Certainly would be.
Tom's looking like,
You're-
I think it's almost definite it does, but we will check.
I've already proposed this question to Scott, Mr. Huber. Is he on the phone? No, specifically regarding how the prevailing wage issue, how this could be resolved here. So I have
Okay.
asked him about that already after our last meeting.
Okay.
But Mr. Hubert, are you on the phone or is he on the phone?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Okay, I'll finish my comments. That would be a big thing.
Yes, it would be.
And then another thing is if that is not the situation, then we should move forward to put this property in the hands of Stage, right?
That would certainly be I think, a long-term goal that would benefit both
Isn't that
the
what's
city and Stage.
going on? I think it would save a lot of money if this thing was transferred, because I think what we're trying to do is relieve the city of some burden and give you your space to operate, and it's going to save a lot of money if that transfers. So my thoughts would be that with this money from this SBF, if things were awarded, and certainly the monies that have been awarded should be put in an escrow account until the property is transferred. And then when it's transferred into your name, this money would be released, and your money's going to go a lot farther than it is right now.
The estimate, certainly, as you know, is that prevailing wage may add as much as 33 to 37% to the cost of any project.
I have men that are brand new that walk on the job that cost me $100 an hour. Never been on a job before in their life.
Yeah.
So I'm well aware.
Well, certainly we would, our board would entertain any proposal, and certainly we would be happy to hear that perhaps prevailing wage is not an issue in this particular time. Certainly the board would be happy to discuss that.
If that's where we're headed anyway, it doesn't make any sense to me for us to hold on to this building in our name and just exasperate the costs on everything you want to do. The dollar's going to go a lot farther if it's under private ownership.
Certainly would, certainly would. And certainly that would be the long-term goal of our Stage board, is to acquire the theater and relieve the city of what we already know is a significant liability. I believe Mr. Murphy was city administrator when we first took over the operation, and the estimates at that time, by not having city employees staff the theater and change the marquee and clean the bathrooms, was somewhere north of $100,000 a year that we were saving the city. And certainly the transfer of the building would go a long way to adding to the city's bottom line.
Right.
The city attorney did confirm that if it's in private ownership, he's fairly certain there's a way around prevailing wage.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I would think we would need to turn that into a short-term goal rather than a long-term goal. We're just throwing money down the tubes here to get the same work.
Right, right.
And I'm not, trying to, the project's certainly a wonderful one, but we got to approach it in a really smart manner as well. I mean, our budget is really important.
Right.
I'm sure that we would all like to get a lot more for our money.
Sure. I brought a pen if we wanted to sign the papers today.
Yes, sir.
I think that would be a violation of the Brown Act if we did that.
I do have a question.
Mr. Lando?
It would also mean that.
Concerns.
Go ahead.
The concerns that I have as far as the city turning over the building, there may be costs to the city. Are they going to come from the SBF too? I mean, I think we ought to try and identify those if they're there. Tom, would you have any opinion on that?
Just before we get too far in this discussion, because I like the way this conversation is going as well, but I don't want to go outside of the scope of what we want to have on the agenda here.
So, a couple points. Obviously, that let me back up more and say that the city's direction is, and we are working with Stage to, in fact, transfer ownership. The council's actually approved not out of SBF money, but out of the RDA residual money, trying to move this over to stage. There's still a few issues to be resolved and still in the works. That was point one. So we are working on it, not SBF money, at least at that point. There may be some, obviously they've hit some roadblocks, so there may be additional requests. And the other is fairly obvious, and that is if we were able to transfer it, then maybe the two local bidders would bid on the job and could get a reduced price.
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be win all the way around. We'd have local contractors doing the work, and
Right.
they wouldn't be afraid of the
We are
government
kind of caught in a
involvement.
catch-22, the idea that we're somewhat reluctant without a funding source to take over the theater and have the burden of the roof replacement on us at the same time. I think that's so I don't want us to be chasing our tail here. I think we're all in the same, on the same page there. But again, our concern is to have that liability of replacing the roof transferred to stage without a funding of some sort to go ahead and accomplish the replacement is a concern to the stage board.
Is there a way to bid it contingent upon
Private
the,
ownership.
transfer of ownership?
I certainly will look into that. Our board will look into that.
Yeah, I personally, because we're moving into with the RDA funds and that 1.7, 1.8 million, we can get a lot of work done for that in the private industry.
Right.
Not much in the public.
Right.
So that would be my focus, is to expedite getting that into your hands. We're headed there anyway.
Right.
Whatever these hurdles are, we need to see what we can do about making them go away.
Okay.
Okay?
Wonderful. Member Carter?
Most of my questions, thank you, have been answered, and I think that is a great idea. I think you could get a lot done to the theater, and I appreciate what you do there for us. But I was just, Jim, wanted to go over, just in case that didn't happen, my questions are, because I understand prevailing wages. My question was, if we do all of these things and the roof leaks next year, is it going to leak on all the improvements that we did?
Well, certainly that's a concern. I will tell you that I believe, yes, our maintenance chief, Stan Hall, is here. Stan and his crew have done a terrific job of addressing areas of concern and leaks before they become a big problem. That literally has been one of our concerns also. We're going to put an awful lot of money from a variety of sources, public and private, into restoration of the theater. And should the roof have a major accident, that could endanger all of that. That is
Thank you.
correct.
Yeah, then my last question, just to make sure that I'm on the right page with this. We actually, you were asking, you were awarded $633,000.
I believe it was 638. Maybe it was 633.
Oh, sorry, 638. And now you are, with the changes, asking for 562,000.
Additional.
Okay.
That's correct.
That's what I wanted to be clarified. Not, that's additional.
Right.
So what would you be doing if we're not fixing the roof with the 638? Is that included in all of
Actually,
that?
the 638 is part of the report this afternoon. We would be doing the marquee. That's about a $300,000 project. Lobby restoration is about $120,000. Hazmat reserve, we've got tentatively at $25,000. So it would add up fairly quickly. That doesn't include any administrative costs, oversight, that kind of thing.
So now we're over at $1 million, about $1 million.
We would be over $1 million with that additional money, that's correct.
All right.
We would be at pretty close to $1 million too, I believe. Did you have something, Mr. Maintenance Supervisor?
If I
Stan
may,
Hall, our maintenance volunteer.
the roof cannot be accomplished this summer because of the project design, development, the tearing off. There's no way we can get that off the ground, done and completed before the next rainstorm. So whatever we do will have to be in the following year, but we need the funds there in place, somehow, either escrow or whatever, guaranteed to us so that we can plan this and do it next summer before we get the heavy rains.
And part of the funds in the report today, $49,000 is estimated to provide the emergency contingency leak proofing of our theater to get us through to spring of next year. And it is, again, going back to the idea of transferring the building to stage. The theater goes dark from July 5th until about the middle of September. And again, given the time frame at this point, an awful lot would have to happen. We don't believe that can be accomplished this year. But we think we can make the roof, and certainly our experience with all of the rain we had this year would indicate we have the experience to go ahead and protect the asset, which is the State Theater in the meantime.
Thank you.
I'm next in the queue. Appreciate all that you guys do there at the theater. How much is in your account right now?
If our treasurer was here, I could tell you that.
Roughly, do you have a?
Including the reserve for the finishing work, I believe it's about $40,000.
About $40,000, including the reserve left for the Oregon project.
Okay, so we recently gave you 638, and then the city was what, 7?
And neither of those funds, 750. Neither of those funds have been transferred to stage yet.
So that 40,000 does not include that.
Does not include any of the funds that have been granted to us.
So right now, roughly 1.2
Right,
is what you're looking at.
that's correct.
Is that not take into account or take into account the sign?
It does take into account the sign.
So
Again, we haven't, I'm sorry, Mr. Thompson, we haven't spent that money yet. We understood the best way to approach this was to incur the obligation and invoice the SBF. And so we will be submitting an invoice for the contract that we just signed, the down payment on the contract that we just signed to replace and redesign the marquee.
So yeah, so you have not spent the 300, and that's coming out of the 1.2.
That's correct.
I as well am dealing with a building right now. I guess just to be straightforward, I'm a little bummed that the thought of, I know this roof is a major priority, that the sign is being spent at the same time that we're talking about needing a roof. Just to be honest.
Oh, sure, no, I understand that.
Because it's like you need the 900,000, but the sign could potentially wait, a couple of years, whereas the longer the roof leaks, the more damage is going to occur on the building.
And I think our concern in addressing the previous SBF grants is that we didn't want to be sitting on that grant. I think the community and the city is looking for some kind of progress. And if we can't do the roof, since all of those projects were part of our original priority list when we came to you in January, all we did was rearrange the priority list to address the realities of the funding.
Gotcha. Okay. Mr. Pittman? Member Pittman?
Yeah, thank you. Actually, I want to make a statement. I appreciate your presentation and the work done on this paperwork here is really, truly amazing in terms of detail and in terms of background and research. So my compliments to you and your group for that. I really appreciate your reorganizing of the project to be within the funding parameters. That's kind of the essence of this particular grant body, is we don't have an unlimited amount, but we have some. And each project we're going to look at, we're going to probably, as a body, when we vote, we'll vote on what we can provide. So I appreciate that, especially your detail. And to me, your priorities are your priorities. I really don't want to get into the minutia of your details of your project, because I think the valuable part of the project, it's yours. It's not mine. I'm a policymaker sitting up here as a policymaker, so my compliments to your group and the way you put this together, whatever funding you get. And I really think, personally, the marquee is something that can bring back down, I think, downtown more than anything else. And a roof's a problem on every building I know of. Doesn't go away, and even if it's temporary repairs, it'll probably work well for a while. I mean, the city's been temporarily repairing it for the better part of 25 years that I can think of.
Right.
So the marquee is a great idea. and I compliment you to come up with that and have the idea of locally advertising and displaying the information. Because we are now a visual society. We don't read much, we see stuff, and that's the way things get transferred and communicated, so.
One of the other, if I can just add one other thought along the line of the marquee, when the Red Bluff Theater was revamped and refurbished and restored to the way it was 70 or 80 years ago, the folks who ran the, I'm sorry, I thought I had this shut off. The folks who oversaw that particular project said that when the marquee went up, with all of the other things that had been done, when the marquee went up, it was really a lightning rod for a tremendous amount of public support for what was going on. It's kind of like, oh yes, you folks are doing wonderful things down there, but now we have a marquee that kind of underscores that. So it certainly in other locations has been a very positive effect on the restoration of a building.
Member Reynolds?
Since the marquee was brought up, we had the State of the City speech the other night and Sam Norris Award, and the marquee had some event that happened a week or two prior, and there were people on the street looking up, wondering if they were in the right place, because the marquee did not reflect the current event. And I don't know if this is the proper venue for that, but
it's okay, because the big challenge, Mayor Reynolds, is that we are a volunteer group, and it will be a great deal easier with an electronic sign to literally change it the following day after an event. So I am aware of that. I want you to know you're not the only one who's sensitive to that. When I've driven by and seen old things on the marquee, I call somebody, and they're tired of hearing me call too. So it'll make both of them happy.
And then back to this, and I can appreciate committee member Pittman's comments, but we also, at this present time, it is your project, that's true, but it is our building right now. So we have to look at it as our structure being protected as well, good stewardship of what's going on with the people's property, and which I am in no doubt you are doing the absolute best. But I just heard you say that you entered into a contract for the marquee. I would imagine that's at a prevailing wage rate as well.
Actually, it turns out that is, and refresh my memory, because it's an artisan project, which is unique and not subject to, it's not a project that can be done by anyone.
Okay.
Yeah. Did I summarize that correctly?
That is correct. However, we are expecting to pay prevailing wage for the electrical.
Installation.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Makes sense, yeah.
Okay. Right, and that's why I'm just getting back to my point that I really think our first step is to expedite this thing and save everyone a lot of money. I would rather sit here next year with everything getting done, rather than going in this year and getting just a part of things done. Like I said, even if we end up awarding you the funds, they should be in an escrow account until this transaction is completed, so you can get all the bang for your buck. I think you'll be a lot happier.
I believe that's correct also, and it certainly would be a very large benefit to the city.
Absolutely. And again, I'm not trying to be the fiduciary for this project. I'm simply just a little thought of my own. I would rather get a Cadillac than a Toyota for the same money.
Hey.
And I do believe the board would be open to the idea of having those funds escrowed until the transfer of ownership was complete.
Absolutely. That would be my suggestion. But that doesn't prevent us, if this board votes to award you funds, then that would be my recommendation, is that they would be set in an escrow account until the time the building is transferred. That doesn't keep us from prevent us from distributing funds to your project.
So if I could speak, what would happen was the SBF would still hold the funds. We would need this agreement to be signed. And then if it takes longer than sounds like it's going to, it would just need to be an extension. So those funds would still need to stay with the SBF until things happen.
We worked out.
Yes. That's what we had in mind. Thank you, Jordan.
And Jordan, on a side note, just before we get into, good word minutia of funds and those who are, and I think we ran into the weeds last time when we approved finances before hearing all presenters. So I think it's important before making decisions to listen to all those who are here today. But before we get into that, just getting started, just for everybody's aware, how much is in the SBF right now that are available for going out? I know that we release a NOFA with a specific amount we're releasing. Could you give me that number as well as what we've decided not to release, just as a point of information?
Yes. So you guys have, from the 2018 NOFA, you guys have $697,142 left.
From the NOFA?
From the NOFA. In reserve, we have about $472,000, I believe. That's a rough estimate. I would also recommend that you hear all A, B, and C before awarding any funds.
Great, yeah. All right, and as just a point of information as well, we have the freedom to either give out all the funds or give out zero funds today. We're not obligated to do either.
Yes. So you have the option to use all of the funds from 2018 NOFA, or they would roll over into how we would allocate them in a couple numbers down in the agenda, or potential for a new NOFA.
Great. Thank you. Any more questions for, I see, actually, Member Carter.
Never mind. You asked them.
Okay.
Never mind.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Mole.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Letter B.
So we're going to have Tony Catalano from Feather River Center. And we're going to do the dreaded 10 o'clock to you too, Tony. Sorry.
I can't see that far. So. Good afternoon. Thank you for hearing us again today. And last time we were here, we had requested $1.2 million for you for our projects. And you expressed certain concerns around our proposal. And I want to address some of those concerns. We've done some work on those since our last meeting. One concern you had was whether there was letters of support from state parks or water resources to do this peninsula excavation project. And I did send you via Jordan, I hope you received it, a letter of support we did get from state parks. That was sent to Eric at DWR in support of our project. We also received a letter of support from Explore Butte County, which works on tourism events throughout Butte County, and I'm an advisory committee on that organization, and they sent us a letter of support also. You also expressed some concern over the length of our contract with state parks. I was been in communication with Aaron Wright and Matt Teague at State Parks, and we're discussing, and Aaron and Matt were working on details, but we're pretty close to signing a 5+5 contract where they would give us a 5-year concession agreement with a 5-year renewal. So that would mean we would have 10 years at least at the Forebay, if we can work that. Our ask was $1.2 million. We cut it back down to about 50%, so now we're at approximately $593,240. We cut, most of the cuts were from, the largest cut was from the largest expense, which was going to go to Melton Design Group for all the permitting and compliance monitoring and all the work on the peninsula. We've negotiated with them to get that down to $250,000, and they will work on one of your other concerns, which has to do with permitting and CEQA and all that. All that will come first. Once we get funds to start the project with Melton Design Group, the permitting will come first. So we'll follow the sequence that State Parks and Water Resources and CEQA dictates in order to do the project properly. We did raise some money since then. Matson and Isom Technology Consulting donated $1,500 to us. We're not going to get up to the 50% threshold, but Tri-Counties Bank also gave us $5,000, and those were unrestricted funds. We've also written grants in conjunction with other groups, with Feather River Park and Rec and Paradise Park and Rec and CARD to California State Parks Foundation. They gave us $12,000 to bring kids and families to the Forebay over the summer. I'm going to be meeting with representatives from those districts in the next week to see how we can put those programs together, because we asked for $20,000 and State Parks Foundation gave us $12,000. So we're trying to fill up that bucket or see how we could change the services, especially in light of the campfire. North Valley Community Foundation gave us $7,500 to bring 3 Paradise schools to the Forebay this summer. One is at Bird Street. Paradise Elementary, you know, is at Bird Street. And so we're going to bring that school out there at no charge, and we're going to bring Ponderosa Elementary, which is housed in Durham, to the Forebay at no charge with those funds. We're also in conjunction with Butte Environmental Council, we received an $8,900 grant from Cliff Bar in order to put on some paddles on the Feather River, some public tours. We had to cancel the one that was scheduled for Wildflower and Nature Festival because of the releases were too high and the river was too high and too dangerous for amateurs to be on it. We're also trying to fill up this State Parks Foundation grant. This missing $8,000, we've contracted with State Theater to put on a Wild and Scenic Film Festival here in Oroville. It'll be the first time Oroville's had something like that, and that's going to be June 8th at the State Theater. And so we're looking to raise another $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000 from that effort to put into that State Parks Foundation grant to again boost programming for Feather River Park and Rec kids, Paradise kids, and families, and CARD. And I think all 3 of those, and probably Durham also has Paradise residents that are campfire survivors, are scattered throughout the county. So whatever we do is going to help all of them. So that's where we're at now. And our ask is down to $593,240, which does include a 20% contingency in case things happen. And that's it for us. I hope I can answer any other questions you have and that you'll consider our request.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from the board here? Member Carter?
I do. You have 3 categories. You have A, B, and C.
Yes, ma'am.
Which one is the most important? If you had to pick of the 3, which do you think would be the most important?
It's kind of hard to tell. There's long-term and short-term. Long-term is the big project with the Peninsula Excavation Project, because that will be able to, in the long term, that's a 3 to 5 year project because of all the permitting, all the work. In the long term, we'd be able to have rowing regattas there that our rowing coaches say could bring in up to $89,000 per regatta, and that's long-term. So we need that's long-term. The others are short-term for safety and programming for our immediate needs. We need more safety launches for our rowing and sailing clubs. We're operating on used, old, always breaking down. We're going to have a bonfire and burn it somewhere when it's finished, this whaler. And so we need some safety launches for the outdoor rec and ed programs, for all the children's students programs in our aquatic camps, as well as safety launches for our rowing and sailing programs. If we have those launches, especially for rowing and sailing, that makes it easier to have more regattas. We're planning to have 2 what they call head races at the Forebay in October, November. That's the head race season in the rowing world. And when you have good equipment and you're showing up with good safety launches and you have that facility is perfect for rowing, it makes us look better. And then we're able to get more people to come in and schedule more regattas because they'll see how well equipped we are. The other set of equipment is for things like kayaks and paddle boards and a computer system, a sign-up computer system for customers. And those items are immediate needs because, we need to upgrade our equipment. We have the equipment that Chico State had, and I don't know how many years ago that was. So we'd like to get a few more stand-up paddle boards, a few more kayaks that are new, and some other kinds of equipment that we could use for our school groups as well as the general public. So I can't answer which is most important.
Thank you.
Marcia, I'm
Kind of
sorry.
clarified. Thank you, though. That helped. That did
Okay.
help. Thank you.
Member Pittman?
Yeah, your program looks great. I love the numbers. It really looks, I can support the idea and the concept, and congratulations on your donation request. The question I have is when you have a regatta, and it's a factor that we have in this community in so many different venues, and that's housing.
Mhm.
You know, if we bring in 500 people for an event, where can we put them for, 500? Is it conceivably possible that people could stay at the Forebay if they brought their own RVs or trailers or that?
I'd have to work with state parks on that, but, Aaron and Matt have been pretty open to talking about things at least. We already bring in school groups for overnights at the Forebay, and we also plan to have an overnight for the Perseid meteor showers, and state parks has been really amenable to that. I would have to defer to Aaron and talk to them about that, but that's a good question.
Well, I didn't know you had overnights already, so that actually answers my question. I'm just looking at if we do start drawing the folks, and a master plan for the Forebay might be a great RV campground park in the future, and you're already doing it now. I think that's what's a wonderful idea because we just can't get enough housing in this community for a whole wide range of things.
Or the county.
Or the entire county. So that's good to hear. I'm glad to see that that's even going on.
Well, part of their plan, Dave, is also they're toying with state parks, toying with the idea of putting cabins out there, some overnight accommodations, and we'd work with them and support that because we see if we have a collegiate regatta or a master's regatta, people could possibly spend the night there too at that park. Again, when you're working with state parks, it's a long way down the road. It takes a lot of work, but they've expressed some openness to that idea.
I think that's a great idea, really great, because then you tie in the whole concept of people doing it and being there at the same time.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We can actually, Dave and Eric and I can probably answer that question because you can do a concession out there as you do with the fireworks. So if you had a large event like that, you could take over that facility and and have camping with parks or whatever else like that.
Right.
Some of us have slept out there over the past.
On
many
purpose,
many fireworks shows we've slept out there watching things, so it can be done.
Yeah.
Well, we want to do it legally, Kevin. Okay.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that even that was going on. I wasn't aware of that, but because I see your event as obviously a huge draw for a lot of things, educational camps, all kinds of things, but we'll miss something if we can't let them spend the night out there or the weekend or whatever the case may be. So that's great. Thank you.
Welcome.
Excuse me, could I just add one thing about the camping at the Forebay? I just want to make sure everyone knows, just in case you don't, there is camping allowed out there. It's called en route RV camping. So, and that's a regular thing. You don't have to have any special permit or anything, and there's a fee for it, but that is allowed right now.
That's true. I forgot
That's
that.
in the parking lot.
Yeah,
That's in the parking lot. They have a section of the parking lot dedicated. Thank you. I forgot that.
And can I ask one real quick? I was slow on my addition. What was the total for the matching funding that you guys have?
Well, I can't really call it matching because it doesn't reach the threshold, but we had 6,500 in 12, 18, 19, 17, 26, $35,000 or so
Okay.
we've raised.
Right.
Some of it's
And-
categorical, it's dedicated to some special programs, but some of it's more open.
Yeah, and I think the committee has decided that maybe that threshold is squishy, so it's not hard
I
and
hope.
fast, yeah.
And currently, we asked for what, 50? Is that, so this is about 6 right now, just so that we're on the same page. Mr. Member Reynolds?
Your $250,000 design from the Melton Group, before it was 500,000, did they cut some things out? Or?
Yes, I didn't cut everything out on our ask on that, on the narrative part, but we would focus on CEQA and permitting and environmental reviews that are necessary to get the project started.
And so this would be your first step, would be your 250,000. How long would this be accurate, this agreement with them?
With them until we used up all the money, I think. I mean, we have to get specifics. I thought Greg was going to be here today, but I'll let Greg answer that question.
Yeah, so the goal is to complete that study. And so you ask how long that is good for to complete the project, as far as complete that feasibility study for the project. So that's what that number is good for.
And that's just a study, it's not a design?
No, it's a design. It identifies the design, which is going to make it the course that we need. It's going to identify all the elements in that, the cost of that. It's going to talk about the environmental needs to remove that peninsula, which makes it the course we need. And so that'll identify all those permits. It doesn't go get all the permits because that's a longer period of time. And we don't know what all those are yet. We're not sure what the state's going to make us do 100%, but we will know after this. And we will do some studies as a part of that initial study to identify all the biology that's there, all the flora and fauna and everything that we have to deal with. And then that'll create all the plans that would then be just conceptual design plans to budget. So then from that point, we'll have a clean idea of what it's going to cost to do this, what are all the hoops we have to jump through with the state and any agencies, and basically give us a clear run of what's next. So it goes through into design development. So we'll have, it doesn't create a set of construction drawings to build it, but it gets us way down that road.
I guess I do want to clarify. I'm going to agree, but just clarify that the CEQA review is good for as long as conditions stay the same. For example, if we've done it pre-campfire and a campfire occurs, you'd have a legitimate argument that you'd have to restudy it. It is good for an extended time period, but it's not good forever.
Okay.
And there's extensions you can do on that as long as you're showing progress with that.
Okay, thank you.
And just for clarification, just from what I'm getting, it's just for a study and conceptual designs, no permits.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
So if you remove the peninsula, you're actually increasing the storage capacity of the forebay, right?
Yes, it does.
I just see Indeed over there.
Trying to make Eric happy.
More money.
It's a great idea.
That's a great idea.
State water contractors will give us more.
I mean, I think the bottom line from my experience with what this project will do, and looking at the conceptual plan or strategic plan, this investment is an investment in a long-term income base. And I know Tony has mentioned that, but that's one of the primary sources of why we're doing this is to, one, we have a great opportunity with some really great water that is state-of-the-art water for this type of element. And with that, he's already talked about Yale and everybody else that wants to be here. And they're calling right now to rent the space. But I think that's the big picture of it all, is the income that would, eventually come from this, we have to invest into.
Do you have any other options for funding? Or are you pursuing anything else?
I'm pursuing funding all the time. so I've got
Any luck?
grants. I just really got really heavily going since the last SBF meeting, and we've subscribed to an organization called Grant Station that sends out grants and lets you get access to a lot of state grants, and I've created a list, and I'm going through those grants to see, and I just got one yesterday from something called the Network for Good that sent us money. I'm trying to raise money on Facebook. I'm trying to raise money on GoFundMe, we're doing all kinds of things. And
Yeah, because, I mean, we're talking about millions.
I'm talking about millions. Well,
Dollars.
it might take more time than I wanted to, and that'll be just the way it goes. But we are working. Whatever you would allocate us, we would do our best to match that, or use that as a ground figure. And once we get money, then it's easier to get more money.
Yes.
You know, once you have some, the funders go, oh, the local people are interested, we'll be interested too. If they don't see any local support, it makes it harder. So,
Yeah, I think it's a great project. I just think that our coffers are a lot smaller than the people who are going to need to get involved in this.
that could be, but we'll find more money. What you allocate us for this project, we'll use as foundational funds to get more and work with Greg and his team on what we can do and can get done and when. So.
You think that you could get Lori Laughlin's daughters to come out?
Yeah, that's a good idea. They don't like school.
At least pose by one of the boats.
I think in the big picture of things is this is such a, when you talk to like the Olympic rowers and you talk to people like that, there's a ton of other support out there that wants to be a part of something like this. And they just need to see that it's possible.
Need someone to pull the trigger.
Right. They need to see it's possible. And then, the U.S. rowing doesn't have something on the West Coast that's straight and viable. So there's a lot of groups like that are.
We had even a couple members of Stage, and I don't know if they're here or who they were. Last time we were here, they stopped us in the parking lot, and their son is a rowing coach, and they had been telling him about the project because they knew about it, and so he looked it up, and he's going to be coach. I think he's going to be new rowing coach at University of Alabama or maybe Arkansas, and he was on the NCAA rowing committee. So he got real excited. He said there aren't very many good venues in the whole country, and he said that is a good venue. If you can get that to happen, will be great. And we got support, like we said. Yale's coming Memorial Day. So is Cal Berkeley's coming Memorial Day. We're going to have two collegiate probably I think they're men's rowing teams here practicing for the championships, which are held now in Lake Natomas in Sacramento. This is a great project. We got to look to the future. We have to invest in something in the future on it, and it's a long time away, but we can get this done. I really believe we can bring an Olympic team here to practice in 2028.
Well, I think it's a great project, and I think it's directly related to what the SBF is about.
Right,
so
I do too. Thank you.
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay.
And just, if I can add one more on this, the challenge with projects like this is that you go to a funder and they go, what is it, right? And so the step that these guys are looking to take is to define what it is and what it's going to cost in terms of permitting the other things. So you can get your arms around it. And somebody's going to take that leap, right, of trying to define it. Once you get there, I agree, there's other funds out there. Recently, the public lands package was just passed overwhelmingly in the House and the Senate. The land water conservation funds, which take some proceeds from oil revenues and directs them to projects exactly like this as possible. But again, they're not going to fund it unless they have some idea of what the project is. So there is money out there that's available, but you have to have kind of those threshold boxes checked, and I think that's what this does.
One other component of the SBF we haven't talked about, but we probably should. One of the reasons, or one of the sidebars in the original agreement, was the state water contractors were to provide grants or grant help. That was contingent on the signing of the new license, and so we've been kind of hung up, with the chicken with the egg. But realistically, this is right in their wheelhouse of water-related, their project, their funding, I think Tony should probably get a hold of Tim Haynes and find out, are they or are they not going to work with the committee or work on this project, and see if we can't solicit their help.
Member Carter?
I just have a quick question you could clarify for me, because I'm still reading it, but would they qualify, because I know they're under state, do they qualify at all for Prop 68 with all that money?
I can answer that, no. I went to a Prop 68 meeting in Elk Grove last November and met with Matt Teague of State Parks, and State Parks was administering that money, and we're a State Parks concessionaire, so they can't give us the money because it would be giving it to themselves. We ran into the same thing with our conference center we want to build, a boating instruction and safety center. Used to be Department of Boating and Waterways, is now a division of State Parks. It's the Division of Boating and Waterways. And when it was the Department of Boating and Waterways, they were charged with building these buildings, and they hadn't built one in a long time. And the people in Sacramento told me we were first on the list for a new boating instruction and safety center because of our record here at the Forebay the last 5 years. Well, then, day before we were going to submit something, they got subsumed by State Parks, and now they can't give money away to themselves either. So we're out of luck on both of those things. But what Dave's talking about, we might with some federal or some state funds.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Any more questions from the dais? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next time we
So
have, go ahead.
Randy Murphy from Feather River Recreation and Park District.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here again at a request not only of this body but of my board to discuss the denial of the previous request to purchase property adjacent to the activity center so that we could at some point in the future expand and possibly build an aquatic center or some other form of structure to encourage recreation. The aspect of safety was brought up kind of almost last minute or as an afterthought. So my understanding from the direction of the chair and or other members of the committee was to come back and tell us about that a little bit. So, and provide some information about the parcels that are clearly available, because in spite of my conversation with all but one of the property owners I spoke to has suggested, at least to Mayor Reynolds, that he might be less than willing to sell. So I do have a letter from two of the property owners, at least one of whom is in the audience here today, to talk about his willingness to sell his parcel to the district. So what I have in the letter that I provided to the committee here are a couple of options. One option to address the safety concern expressed by the committee's representatives from the district. One would be simply to modify the existing parking lot, basically separate the ingress and egress. Would include resurfacing the parking lot because of the striping and everything, and it needs to be reoriented so that it improves traffic flow through the parking area. But basically, again, using existing footprint of the parking lot, having a separate entrance and exit. That estimate with the attached email that was in that package is about $150,000. To purchase the two parcels immediately adjacent to the north of the current facility, parcels that the seller is willing to basically let them go for what he owes. And that letter, like I said, is included in this package. That amount is approximately $50,000. To pave those two parcels and repurpose it essentially as parking, because that was one of the concerns expressed, is that there is inadequate parking for some of the larger events that we have at the facility. Those improvements, some minimal grading and drainage, et cetera, doing complying with city code that would no doubt require sidewalk along Mitchell and some other things, is about $350,000 plus the purchase of the parcels, so that'd be a total of about $400,000. The third option would be to purchase those two parcels, the parcel along the back, and the purchase and improvements that would provide access road to the back parcel and some additional parking back there. Altogether is about $900,000, which is almost what we originally asked for. Now again, that's to improve, which again was my understanding of what the committee asked for. To purchase, simply purchase the properties, we're talking about $150,000 to make absolutely no improvements. But then the logic would dictate, why buy them if you can't use them? So that's why I included the estimate for improvement. Again, from a practical standpoint, the only absolute need regarding the safety concern would be to modify the existing parking lot. I did do some research. I asked the Chief Lagrone for accident information on Feather River Boulevard. There have been 8 accidents on Feather River since 2012, none since December of 2015. 3 of those accidents indicated cross street was Mitchell. The other 5 were north of Mitchell. That is possible they were at the intersection, but since Mitchell is the closest intersection, that could also include stuff at our driveway. So the safety concern may have been a little overstated. It does get congested there at times, there's no question. You know, I myself have had to wait 5 minutes to get out, but that's really, you know, all there is about that. But there is a map, one of the drawings on the back, one of the second, well, lose track here. 6th page of the packet, you know, indicates the parcels we're talking about. So parcels 36 and 37 are the 2 that would be $50,000. The one across parcel 100 is again, as noted in the letter, $100,000 unless we buy it all together, then they would discount at $5,000. All reasonably within the estimate that was done 1.5 to 2.5 years ago, appraisal. So, and that email is included as well. So with that, I'm here to answer questions.
I believe we have a public speaker on this one.
Thank you. I was going to clarify that.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have one public speaker, Don Noble.
And they'll probably have you come back, Mr. Murphy.
Hi, Don Noble. Thanks for allowing me to speak. And I have to say the view is a little bit different from down here. I actually kind of like it. So 2 minutes. As I'm sure you're all aware, one of the pieces of property that we're talking about here has belonged to my wife, Jean, and me for about 14 years. We owned the property and actually purchased the property originally wanting to help with the effort to build Riverbend Charter School. As the years passed, our goal of creating something lasting to benefit our community morphed into the hope of helping make an aquatic park and swim facility a reality. Well, that remains a dream of mine. Our immediate goal now is to make a legacy gift to Feather River Rec and Park District by suggesting a purchase price below what we're confident we can get from developers. To be completely honest, we have another option for our land, but it's not the one that my wife and I will be able to look back on one day in our old age, which for me is sometime next week, and say with pride, wow, we helped make something really special happen on our land in downtown Oroville. So do I think a downtown aquatic park is still a possibility on Mitchell Avenue? Absolutely. And here's one reason. This is the Prop 68 application guide. I've read it cover to cover, and our community is exactly the kind targeted for these funds. And aquatic parks are mentioned by name for the use of the $650 million. I continue to be convinced of all the potential large projects that our community has going forward. A new downtown swimming facility would be the biggest game changer for families, especially low-income families. But I realize today is about addressing the potential that acquiring these parcels would have to alleviate the existing serious parking, traffic, and safety issues at the FRPD. I'm not sure that argument's been made well. Maybe, Marcia, you can chip in on this. Can I have 10 more seconds?
10 seconds, go ahead.
Okay.
9 seconds.
So, so to me, today, this committee has an opportunity to do some really wonderful things that will send ripples through our community's future, and I hope you'll consider this. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Mr. Murphy, can you, and we have Member Carter, you have a question?
I'm just discussing, is that okay? Is there do I have to ask a question?
No, you can.
Okay. I think the reason that I'm going to be speaking for both Gary Emberlin and I think at the last meeting, and he's made it quite clear how he both felt about the importance not only of the safety, and I know, and Randy, it's safety. There hasn't been an accident, but it doesn't mean that we should not do prevention. And I've seen how many children, like you said, you've had to wait 5 minutes to get out of there. And to me, in my my opinion, is by adding an exit and an entrance out with an additional, it was presented to us at $300,000, but it's gone down to $150,000, so that's a lot less. It doesn't stop the traffic. It doesn't stop anything from going in and out. When we can simply, and basically, I think at this time the district is really asking, and what Gary and we presented, was to only consider, if you look at the back on the map, you kind of need to, if you guys could all go to that and look at that for me, you'll see the 100 is the most important, and the reason that is it goes directly to Mitchell, so you could have an exit, but there's more parking. It allows parking, it allows a complete access to the back, which it doesn't matter if it's a swimming pool or what it is. It allows for the future. Otherwise, we are completely landlocked in. Example, if next door, let's just say, or somebody put apartments there, we're landlocked in forever. This is the only and last chance that we have. The only thing that this time that's really important, and I understand the roads are, but maybe we could bring back to the SBF because there is other money. And if we actually had real estimates to bring here, we can consider it. At this time, I think the most important thing is only 3736, which was Gunter's property, and he has been wanting to give that to the district for so long. And they hold the family, well, I know they sold it, but is only asking to take it over for $50,000. That's another exit out. So not only will we have just entrance coming in off of Feather River, you could have entrance only and exit out. It's, so that I have no financial interest in it anymore, but I can tell you it is needed. And I'd like to share, but mostly those are the most important facts. Parking, extra excess, it opens it all up. And this is also what I was talking about. Some of the board members have not got to see a meet. When we host a meet, there's about 3,000 people here a weekend. They are trying to park in our parking lot. This is on a rainy day at the Halloween Jamboree. I just want you to see it. That's at the motel in between. They have been wonderful for all these years. I actually talked to the owner years and years ago. He had no problem with them parking in there, and so it's okay. But if you look, it was really upsetting when I stopped one day and took these pictures because there was an older person with a cane, me, walking through the rain with her umbrella and her cane in one hand, walking all the way down the chain link fence to come all the way down the parking lot to get in the meet to watch her granddaughter. I don't feel that's okay. The safety, if you look at the cars parking out on Feather River, when you try to get out during a meet, you have cars parked on this side and this side you cannot see. It is a danger. Yes, we haven't had an accident, but it doesn't mean we're not going to. So that's the only thing at this time I'm asking. I feel that the board or the district is asking is the 3 parcels, and that's what should be discussed. And I know Randy also had said something about the asphalt being so much. I actually looked into this years ago too, well, even last year. And asphalt, I'm sure as we sort of know, is by per square foot or yard, like cement's by yard, right? Asphalt is by 5, it goes from the maximum for a 2 to 2 inch asphalt is $5 a square foot. Okay, a square foot. Even if you take the whole entire 1 acre, the one of the 37, 36, that's 50 by 200. That's 10,000 square feet. To do the entire, pave the whole entire thing is $50,000. What I was given was, I think it has to be 14 feet wide for an exit, just like that you see at Starbucks, you know, the exit. There's no lights, there's no curbs and gutters. And when I had talked to the city before, I talked to Eric? No, engineering. Anyway, we didn't have to have because we were just coming from private to public, that we could get the sidewalk curbs and gutters deferred. Because, and we wouldn't really have to do anything, and that was in the cost that I had gotten, and it was about $40,000 to completely do an exit. So I think we really need to have at least assessments, an estimate, excuse me, not assessment, an estimate, instead of just guessing and then maybe bringing that to where the district could only ask for one exit at this time, and it would be around $50,000.
Thank you. I'm next in the queue. Just a couple questions for you, Mr. Murphy. Thank you for your time. So total here, I'm looking at 139 for the two properties, 44.95 if they're purchased together.
The two properties.
Right. If they're purchased together, we got 44 and 95.
Yeah, round figures 150, but
yeah.
For rounding purposes.
Okay. And then just out of curiosity, I know last time we awarded for the pool area, was it 750? Yeah, 750. That's what my numbers were. And then as well, I know you guys had money received from the insurance for Riverbend. Does that money for Riverbend, does it have to specifically be used at Riverbend, or can it be used within other Feather River Parks District properties?
Just like any insurance proceeds, they do not have to be used on the property in which they were received for, but they will not pay a second time. You know, in other words, if the building is burned down and you take your insurance money, you can use it for anything, but they're not going to give you another allocation the next time a fire comes through.
Right.
So, you know, I mean, so we could use it for other things.
I didn't know that.
So a small 150 would, because it was like millions, right?
Well, we've already spent over $5 million.
It's like 9, wasn't it?
Well, the original estimate was, I believe, 8.5, so 9. Yeah, and you know, there's we've received in reimbursement a little over $5 million so far, and there's about another $2 million to be spent.
Okay. Is it I'm not part of the Parks District. I'm just thinking, as I was even just contemplating the 750 recently and thinking about how we gave money to that, and then driving like, these guys have received $9 million as well. You know, there's a lot of projects that are needed, and so to me, like 139 doesn't seem like a whole lot in the scope of.
No, obviously, and that would be up to the board to prioritize that expense. But this NOFA was out before a lot of other things were thought about.
Right. Okay. Member Fowler.
Okay, well, I have a slightly different narrative.
Excuse me?
I have a different narrative.
Go for it.
Randy and I discussed this morning, we had a conversation, and if these properties were purchased and we had a thoroughway, in essence, what we would have is a wind tunnel. People would go straight through, and there are kids getting out of the entrance all the time, and it would not slow down traffic. It would increase traffic because people know it's a thoroughway. If you want to slow people down, we need another second entrance, another second driveway in the same parking lot. A U-shaped turning is going to slow people down. So yes, it's an inconvenience, but if we had the other property, which then we have to put a blacktop on and all the other amenities, it's cost prohibitive in my opinion. It's not the best allocation of the SBF fund. I can see the money being better spent elsewhere. If you look at 99, 60% of that property is the building. There's property in the back for parking. We've got room for parking. So this is not an emergency.
Thank you. Any more comments from, we have a. Yes, I do. All right, Mr. Zeitler.
Number one is I do go weekly to that, and I can tell you, it's gonna be a bear to ever get a second exit out where it is right now. And, when people are driving 35 and 40 miles an hour there, good luck on a day, so it is a safety hazard, you know. And I've not been there busy, I'm there around lunchtime. So I can imagine 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock, it ought to be real fun. The second thing I'd like to do is that you don't have to do all of it at once. The key is the property here. Really owning that puts you in a good spot. And you have to remember, for some of you that haven't been on the board, we have looked at aquatic centers and other things on this property in the backside of this for several years. So you have that owning it. Now you have the option to do what you want. My only condition would be on that last section 100, anything there built that is by SBF funds, I would like to see funding come back to the SBF. You know, we've talked about this before, a return to the SBF. That would be my only condition of buying the land. But I think, you know, with what's going on in the campfire, you know, your days are numbered on being able to buy this stuff. So especially on Feather River, you know, I think as the chamber and others, for safety, for usage, for down the road, you can make several cases for this, and thank you for my input.
And just for clarification, you did include a bid from, looks like Franklin Construction.
Yes, and that is a current estimate, in spite of Director Cotter's protestations about value. As we all know, asphalt is petroleum-based, so we see gasoline prices up over $4 a gallon right now. That's reflective of the oil market. Also, 2 inches of asphalt would not be adequate for the throughways. It would just bust up in a matter of months.
Yeah, I see for just 36 and 37 parcels, 300 to 350,000. If we did 36, 37, and 100 plus access, we're looking at 650 to 750,000.
Yeah.
Outside of the purchasing of the property.
Correct.
I think we also, isn't there, I'm fine with it this time, but typically we open receive for public speakers at the beginning and then we close that off. So we'll receive this one public speaker here, but at that point, just for the public to know, if you want to speak on an item, those do need to be presented before discussion begins, so we don't have a banter back and forth and people keep getting blue cards. So at this point, we'll do, Member Carter has a comment and then we'll go to the last public speaker.
I did not know that any of the money from Riverbend Insurance could be used for anything else but Riverbend. I always, as a director, have been under the assumption that only the money, the insurance that we received, and it could not be used for anything else. And we had discussed it a couple of times, so I'm a little confused about that. So maybe we could get clarification from Jeff.
I already have.
Okay. And he said we can. So that's great. So
I
you
spoke
mean,
to the insurance company as well. They don't,
Yeah.
there is no
right.
restriction.
Well, we have not been told this. This has not been shared with us.
My first board meeting, I commented that we could use the funds for anything. There were some comments of disbelief. I looked into it. I've clarified it. The board had previously made a commitment that, before my arrival, that they would only spend the funds at Riverbed. But actually at our meeting tomorrow at 2 o'clock, there will be discussion about reallocating and repurposing some of those insurance funds, and the repurposing of it for potentially purchase of these properties or other improvements is on the agenda.
That's great. I do remember you talking about that, but previously, before you were there, was that my understanding was it's to be spent at Riverbend, because I think we tried to discuss, could we put it at other parks? You know, can we use this $2.5 million on other things? And that's a great thing that we can bring to our board to discuss.
It's on tomorrow's agenda.
Yeah, so, thanks. Okay.
So if I can just add to that, the previous consensus of previous boards was that we would spend this money on finishing the park, obviously because of the damage, and try to make it even better than what it was. And that's been the consensus.
Thank you. And with that, thank you, Mr. Fowler, or Murphy.
Tasha Levinson, and it was exactly on this point that it came up. The board has twice committed, once before Mr. Murphy's came online and once after he came online, that those funds would be committed directly to Riverbend, and that was because the public was concerned that they would be spent other places and that park would not be brought back to be the jewel that it was. So they have voted unanimously twice to hold it, and the fact that it's bringing back is really offensive to me as a member of the public, but I'm just letting you know we've always known they could be spent for any purpose. They've twice committed they would spend only on Riverbend. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any more comments from the dais? All right, so we have 3 options on the table, 3 actually items, and what we decide to do with them is now the decision of this panel. Open to talking points, discussion points, thoughts. Motions. Member Pittman?
Just for clarification, total amount of money we have available to fund today.
1 point.
I would recommend you stay within the 2018 NOFA amount, which would be the 697,142, which is left over. There are funds in reserve, but I would recommend you stay within the NOFA, but that is up to you guys.
Appreciate that.
Just for information, 697 and then reserves is 472. So
Correct.
1.169. But I'm on the same page, Jordan.
Thank you.
Member Reynolds?
Well, I'll just go ahead and share what I've come up with here. On item C, the purchase of the property, I'm a no for that. Item B, for the Feather River Center, I was thinking 300,000. And as far as stage, I think that we should work on the transfer of the property, leave the remaining money in our account, and wait to get this property transferred, and then set an amount for that at a future date.
So, any comments on that, or would you like to make a motion on item B?
If there's no comments, I'll make a motion that we award 300,000 to item number B, Feather River Center.
I would like to make a motion on C then. I meant on.
Let's do the
Oh,
one
we're
at a
gonna do
time.
one at a time?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll second.
All right, we have a first and a second.
Motion carries.
All right, your projects is moving forward. As you know, just as a congratulations.
Congratulations.
I'm in the wrong business though. 250 for design work.
Really?
We'll hire you.
Nice.
Question of staff, what remaining funds do we have available in that?
397 in the NOFA. Member Carter, are you in the queue?
Can I make a motion, or are we
Yeah,
not
you can make
on anything?
Yep.
Okay. Yes, I'd like to make a motion that this committee approve a modified request of $150,000 to fund the FRPD to purchase and pay for closing cost of parcels 37, 36, and 100 located next to the recreation facility on Mitchell Avenue.
Looking for a second. Okay, without a second, that motion dies. Do we have another motion?
I would make a motion for item A, stage, for a award of $375,000, leaving a little bit left for another purpose that I have in mind. But $375,000 to stage.
Additional to their 638.5.
To their, yes. Right.
I would like to amend the motion if I could, that money remains in escrow until we get this property transferred.
I have no problem with that. Added to the motion. Work that deal out, that's fine.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, yeah. So no money will be released until projects are completed. It's a reimbursement of funds. So if they wait until it's transferred over and don't do anything, then that's how it would work.
Well, and the motion, the motion also includes the fact that we've accepted their revised plan. And that
Correct.
contract would go forward.
Correct. So you want to add 375 to the 638.5.
Correct.
With the contingent on a new budget.
I'm not sure if we can amend the first amount. Can we amend the first amount, or since we've already approved that amount?
You've approved the first amount, so you're adding to it, so it would be an additional.
Specifically the 375 is what we're discussing here.
Right.
True.
To be contingent upon the acquiring the property.
Agreement is not signed. Would we add them together? We would include them together.
Okay.
Well, but you heard the second part of the motion. That's what I was going to clarify, and the chair just did, that it's contingent on the property being transferred. Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
For the 375. Only for the 375.
Only for the 375. Okay. So it probably would be two separate agreements then.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
And can I make one comment? Reading the notes from the September meeting, that also said contingent upon coming back with a revised budget, which they did that tonight. But the budget, it went up because there were some things that were unforeseen. But even that one was contingent upon having a budget revised to the amount that you approved last time. So just pointing that out.
And I would recommend, if you can do it, then that it all be contingent on transfer of property, because it's going to make everything cheaper.
So amended to the motion. How's that? You like that?
Do you have that, Jordan?
What he just said?
We'd like to amend both agreements to be contingent on the transfer of property.
Yes.
Yes.
That's fine.
Which just goes to show our motivation to see the property move forward.
Okay.
We have a first and a second.
Motion carries.
Congratulations. All right, moving forward, item number 6. Potentially allocating available funds to categories established by the RFSP. Staff report. Thank you for coming, everybody.
Let's wait a couple minutes.
Can we take a quick 5-minute break?
Yeah.
All right.
5-minute break. Right now it's 3:47.
5 minutes?
5-minute recess. I have baseball practice.
Well, the next thing on the agenda, number 6, is
How do you like being on the FERP? What?
FERP
SBF meeting.
My second term? Yeah, it's great.
Are you the chair?
both of these,
And
well,
now.
stages, not
Finally.
stage.
Yeah.
Congratulations. She might be down to shop, but.
You got my work cut out.
Really,
Thank you.
it stayed within some of the parameters that they laid out.
We all do our part, right?
Right.
Every day, right?
Which they did. I think they voted no. Had an agenda. So,
You got more money than we do.
I just thought it was just because the conditions had changed, there was, basically it was that the original vote was based on commission, it wasn't entirely accurate. That's the gist of it.
We always enjoy seeing you. Thank you. Yes, we do.
I don't know, boss, at St. Logic is off.
Change a couple things and repackage it.
I'm waiting to get my concealed carry.
No offense, but.
I know.
More than concealed carry.
No, we're less than
Next stage now, maybe they got spots here. Really?
Well, and not knowing if it's.
Oh, my word.
Yeah, there's been times when
You should have presentations on the that's the issue that we talked about before.
I turned the air on just for you.
I was so hot because I was over there pouring coffee at the fire station. I came in and just poured and sweat, so it takes a while to cool down.
right or wrong count.
My comments are amazing. Well, I always ask, I mean, they had originally had offered to do it, but then last year when there was the effort to, renegotiate the settlement agreement, Tim Haynes came to this meeting and said that they had lost their appetite to provide any grant writing at that time, that was the reason why. I don't know, I think it's still just kind of floating out there.
Sure, sure. You like it, you don't like it. Yeah.
There was a FERC commissioner here today on a tour of the project. Oh, you heard about it? I didn't know until yesterday. I hadn't even heard. So I was like asking, what is it? Does that mean anything? And everyone's all, no, it doesn't mean anything. But I don't know. It's all at the FERC. Yeah, I know nothing. Oh no, it's up to FERC. FERC was, as I understand it, FERC was ready to go with this thing back after the Trump administration took over, and one person resigned, and he fired one person, or downgraded, and then that person or resigned. So they didn't have a quorum for a period of time.
Yeah.
And so they couldn't function without a quorum on a big issue like that, really. And so they finally got the quorum together. By then, the spillway thing had started, and so then it was like, they were getting these letters saying, hold on. I got a picture of it. Yeah. I get to do my report. So, yeah, so.
Well, but it'd be good to find out. Of course, actually, I didn't what portion or not, but didn't turn it out.
I don't really. I'll say, no, is there any changes? Well,
Yeah. So how do you know about streams reading requirements?
What's his name, Devin?
Yeah. You know, on that point, he was our
I know, I agree.
well, I haven't heard we're gonna do that. We have a 401, so.
Well, you're already past it, no, it's if you.
That's all part of the dam removal
We haven't started.
effort? Or?
I got direction.
Thank you, everybody. We're back from recess. Let's go ahead and bring this meeting back into order. So now we're on item number 6, allocating of available funds. Do you have a staff report, Jordan?
Yes. So since we have rewarded some of those funds, your helpful little guide in there, it's pretty much pointless now. I went through with a couple potential allocations that I would recommend, but that large amount that we had in the beginning has now changed. So what we have now is 398,000. Sorry, yep, and then 373.80 cents. So that is what now we want to allocate into those separate categories. These categories, I didn't just make them up. They are from our regional fund strategic plan, and we do this every year. So we allocate funds into these seven categories. In consent, you guys did approve the administrative costs of $98,000. So that is already subtracted from that, or has not been, but will be subtracted from that $398,000. So it's up to you guys how to allocate the rest of it. I would recommend, I can give some recommendations of what to leave in reserve, what would be comfortable. I also have in there a recommendation. Each year we do allocate funds to the chamber. Once the agreement is signed, it's an automatic $60,000 a year. So that's something that I did work into the numbers. I believe last year we did 50 years before we've done similar. So but it is up to you guys how to allocate that almost 400,000.
We have Member Carter?
We also approved I really should have asked, I was gonna pull that. The $98,000, didn't we also approve 36,000?
36,000 for.
It says, the committee consider requesting 36,000 for covering December 16th, 2018 through March the 31st.
That is just an update. That's what was spent between that time frame that was already in the allocated funds. So that's just an update of how those funds were spent. It's already in your budget.
Okay, because it just says committee may consider requesting. So I thought it was an additional amount, but it's already been paid.
Correct.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I can change the wording next time.
Okay, thank you.
I believe Dave has a comment for her.
So have you been in contact with the state water contractors to know if they plan on continuing to fund the SBF before the license is issued?
So we have an additional 100.
Okay, can't tell if it was on. So the question you're asking, as part of the original agreement with the city of Oroville to be the fund administrator, there was an amount that DWR had approved, and I don't have the exact figure in front of me, but it includes funding an additional $273,000 over the next two and a half years if the license is not signed. If the license is signed, the 273 is still funded, and then State Water Contractors does the funding based on the length of time that the license is approved for.
So we have about 3 more years of funding,
right?
Because we're getting 100,000 each year. So we have 2 more years of 100,000 coming, and then we have 35,000 the third.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah.
I checked your numbers, Jordan, with mine, and they match up.
Oh, good. Thank you.
There's an issue that will be coming up, but not with issue, but a request to the City Council to approve a resolution authorizing a 1-year renewal, an 1-year extension. This would be like extension number 11, I believe.
Yes, it is.
But the funds that, Dave, that you were thinking of, they were committed 10 years ago. and those funds have been drawn on consistently during that period of time.
Yeah, and to be clear, the, what Bob's talking about is the contract. We have to have a vehicle to be able to give the money to the city, so that's what that contract is for. So we just have been renewing the same thing every year, just extending it on in 1 year increments.
And we've been working to get that on the council agenda, I promise.
Okay.
Great. So to the allocating of funds, I'm not making a motion. I'm just speaking a recommendation, and then we can decide what you guys think. What I have down here for my thoughts are 60 towards the chamber, 200 towards the revolving loan, and 138 in reserves. But what are you guys' thoughts? I think the marketing and community benefit looks like all the other entities that we've already released funds through chamber, ODBA, and what other projects for marketing. So I don't necessarily see pressing precedents for doing that on top of what they're already doing. But we do have the chamber. I do like the idea of revolving loan, same way of first-time home buyers program. You give money out and it comes back and you can keep giving it out. Keep stimulating projects in the community.
I'm open to that as a motion if you'll make it.
So just one little thing. The revolving loan fund does require a NOFA. So if you want to put funds in there, we would need to release a new NOFA of that 200,000. The marketing community benefit, although it was in the last NOFA, it's not required to be in a NOFA. Those can be one-off requests, like someone getting Rotary per se, getting in the agenda, asking for funds. That would be a one-off marketing request. So we could split those funds, put 100,000 in each, or keep it the way Chair Thompson recommended.
Well, like I said, we just released funds to a couple of those people for marketing. But yeah, we probably wouldn't first allocate the money, and then if we desired at this point to release enough, we don't necessarily have to release enough of, but we need to release enough in order for those funds to be
Correct.
open to the community.
But you don't have to, correct?
But sure, I'll make a motion, 60 for the chamber, 200 for revolving loan, and the rest into the reserve.
I'll second that.
Motion carries.
All right, moving on to number 7.
So
I think we've already answered it in number 6, but
exactly. So number 7 has been completed in the above. So we can move on to number 8.
legally, do we need to release it to them? Because we've allocated it, but legally, do we need to make a motion to actually release it to them, or?
No.
No?
You've already done that in your.
Okay.
Motion.
Yeah, in approving the distribution of funds.
Okay. Number 8 is
Okay.
establishing an ad hoc committee for future NOFA screening.
So there was some mention in the last meeting that you guys would like to be more involved in that screening process of applications we received. We took that in account and we suggested that there could be an ad hoc committee if need be. This is something we could revisit if you decide to release a NOFA. If it's not something that you want to do right now, we could revisit it then, or we could set one in place if that's what you want to do for future.
I'm open to it. I'd love to be involved with the process. I think part of the concern was some of the applicants did not provide adequate information and should not even necessarily have been qualified to come to the dais. And so looking for somebody to be the mean guy, which I'm fine with being. Who makes the motion for this committee?
Yes, so you guys would pick. Currently it's myself and the city administrator, which acts as the fund administrator that goes through the applications. So we would recommend that we pick one from each of the bodies. So one from City of Oroville, one from Feather River Park and Recreation District, and one from the advisors as well that you guys would recommend. A nose goes over there.
I think
Wow.
I think actually this year when you touch your nose, that says,
I think
I'll
that
do
means
it.
you're it, yeah.
I'll do it.
So that would make up a body of 5 of us reviewing those applications.
I nominate Scott Thompson.
Oh, I was
City of Oroville.
I nominate David Pittman, actually.
Oh, I nominate Scott Thompson
Oh,
along
wow.
with Mr. Zeitler as the committee member and Mr. Fowler as the other body committee member. I make that as a committee member motion. How's that?
Wow.
I'll second that.
All right.
Advisor.
What?
Advisor.
They picked Siler.
Vote by consensus, huh?
Oh, they did?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
I like
Motion carries.
Motion carries.
I did say, I guess I would be fine to be the mean guy, so
Hey,
I changed my
I heard
motion
that
to a
as a
yes.
volunteer.
Yeah, I did too.
All right, that passes. Moving on.
So item 9 is the last on for regular business. We have Randy Murphy at the dais again. He's going to be talking on, there's some issues that arise with the allocating of funds for the Brad Freeman Trail. So just wanted Randy to come in and kind of touch on those things. And it's pending the signing of the agreement. So if Randy wants to explain some of that to you guys.
So Murphy's Law has struck again. The proposal as I presented to this committee a couple of months ago, anticipated no property rights, right-of-way issues. If you look at the last page of this particular item, this is a record of survey that was done by John Christofferson 10 years ago. Pretty much right in the middle of the page, there's some parallel lines, and right between it, it says ownership unknown. And therein lies the rub. There is an existing trail currently across the property, and there's what is known as a prescriptive right. So basically, if a property owner does not prevent people from passing through his or her property unabated for a period of time, I believe it's 2 or maybe 3 years, they cannot bar access, but they can prevent improvement. And so that's the way a lot of our more rural roads and trails and things established over time is that's the way everybody went, and then at some point you can't stop them. But so I've had conversation with the county. There's 9 parcels across there. They own 5 of the 9. The city owns 1. There's 2 private owners that are known, and then there's this 1 section that is unknown. There's a process called a quiet title action that can be undertaken and to basically flush out the owner or otherwise get court direction that would allow the improvement to the property. The direction from my board is to pursue the quiet title action. Supposedly, the county, when they did the Veterans Memorial Project, tried to figure out who owned this, and they were unable to do that. They went down there were actually original plat maps, et cetera, and there's no record. It could be an anomaly in the way the title was recorded. It could have been a mistake in the survey process. If you look, the lines appear to be parallel, so it's quite possible somebody thought they were describing a common line and they made a mistake. They missed it by whatever that is, 30 or 40 feet. Nonetheless, this is a problem that was not anticipated, and thus probable delay. Now, we only have a year to complete the project, and it may in fact only take a few months, but it's been suggested that it could take as long as a year just to resolve the property ownership issue. On top of that is the fact that there's an unknown cost associated with it. The district was granted by the Friends of the Nature Center, one of the matching items in the original request. The district was granted $10,000 toward this project. So, and I indicated to the donor that we would likely use that $10,000 to help resolve this issue, and they were okay with that. But it may not be enough. So what I'm here, and it's really an unknown. In talking with Grant Hunsaker, who is the Director of General Services for the county, he suggested to me that they recently pursued a quiet title action, and I don't know any of the details associated with that particular action. But he said it cost the county $67,000, not 627, but almost $70,000 to resolve. I don't believe it was as complicated, or I mean, I don't believe this is as complicated as that probably was. In conversation with the district's legal counsel, Jeff Carter, he suggested that he thought it would be plus or minus 25% of the $10,000 that's available to us. We know 8 of the 9 property owners. 5 of them are the county, 1 of them is the city. Conversations with them suggest they have no objection to this process. Of the 2 private property owners that are known, 1 for sure has expressed a desire via a testamentary document that the trail can be improved through his property. The other one, in conversation with other people, other staff, have suggested that they have no objection. Chances are, whoever may own this unknown parcel, should they come forward, would not have an objection either, but there's still a legal process that has to occur. And the county's made it clear that they want us to go through this legal process before they give us their blessing. So my request to this committee is 2 things. One is that we extend the spend-by date, the expiration date of the agreement for a year, with the understanding, obviously, that we would go as soon as we can, but we know right now going into it, there's going to be a delay. We just don't know how long the delay will be. The second request is, in the event that this project, this quiet title action, this research that has to be done, the legal process that has to be done, costs more than the $10,000 that the district has available to do this, that we amend the scope of the $260,760, I believe, just under $261,000, to include any costs associated with this beyond the $10,000, with the idea that if necessary, we can come back and request backfilling that amount later on. So that's the story. Again, Murphy's Law, it was totally unanticipated, at least from my perspective. I just thought, you know, there's been a lot of outcry or requests in the public for completion of the trail. We're in a position to help facilitate that, and we've come into this stumbling block, you know, that needs to be overcome.
All right, thank you. Member Reynolds?
Well, we're agendized to either approve the extension agreement or not approve the extension agreement. We're not agendized to allocate any more funds. So it would have to be re-agendized if we're interested in that.
So my recommendation is that our recommendation would be to sign the current agreement. It's currently not signed. It's just a pending agreement. And then in the need be of an extension, you guys could award that.
And if there's any additional.
An additional dollar amount if need be. I think by signing it, and, you know, lights a fire that it kind of needs to get done now. And then the extension, if we run into that roadblock, is something that easily can be on the next agenda.
But the extension is all that's on here now. Maybe I'm not understanding what you're telling me.
It's just a recommendation of the extension. You can still ultimately do whatever you would like.
Member Pittman?
Yeah, there's a long history of this trail and this section of it. In fact, there was an issued permit that Mr. Mackey, Peter Mackey, got and actually started constructing the trail, I want to say in the early 90s, maybe the late 80s. And I don't know if that permit's still valid at all.
Probably not.
It was from Boating and Waterways, believe it or not. And then the unknown parcel, my historical information is that's the old road to the ferry before the bridges were ever built. Hence the the other road, or they call the Old Ferry Road, it was never really the Old Ferry Road, it was the road to the nature center. The direction of that parcel that I'm looking at the parcel map was the actual old ferry itself back in 1900. I wasn't there. But sure.
I thought you helped construct it.
No, but Grandpa McKellen would probably give you a story about it, but that and Wendell Hammond. Wendell Hammond was the gentleman that actually ran that ferry prior to the dredgers. But yeah, I'm all about you signing the agreement and then coming back with an extension, and I got no problem with a year-long extension because this is a complicated thing. My other question is, I know the city was willed a piece of property. Did we in fact receive that piece of property?
That's the one I was talking about, where the
Gibson
property
property?
owners indicated that they will grant an easement
Right.
for the trail.
But does the city own that parcel?
No, it's still privately owned.
Still privately owned? Because there was, Peter Gibson's will,
Right.
willed a portion of property, and that property was the old Spanish land grant that went to center of river.
Right.
Which confused a lot of people because they'd never heard of such a thing, but that's how far that property goes back to.
Right. So it's my understanding and my read, I have read some of that language, and it was not actually granting the land, it was granting an easement.
Okay.
And for the trail.
For the trail to
And it has
happen.
to be, well, it was a stipulation, it had to be named
Peter
Gibson Trail.
I can believe Peter
I
would know.
grant easements to, temporary easements to people across my land sometimes, but I always put a date on, expiration date, and then
Right.
we'll renew it at that date if they're not complete with their project.
Right.
But they will get a prescriptive easement if you just allow it open-ended.
Right.
So Dave, if I may add to that, back in '04, I was the vice president of the Nature Center, and Dr. Peter Gibson was a friend of mine, and I actually gave him the documentation for that easement, which he signed. I don't know anything about the Spanish land grant into the middle of the river, which I'm aware that his family owned as well.
Right.
But that's new to me. I don't know that.
Well, and I only knew about it because the will came forward to the city, and I was on council at that time, and I don't remember the date. I would have to talk to the city attorney about it. But it's a complicated area, and I look forward to your efforts to get this one done.
Me too.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Great. Member Carter?
Yes, I just have a question. By signing this agreement, does that mean the Feather River is taking responsibility also in case the extra cost of getting this done on the property, the search on the property? Because what the problem I have is the city owns one of these parcels, and there's 3 unknown, and the district owns none of this property, yet we're taking the lead, and do we also have to have financial responsibility by signing this agreement without it being extended? Exactly, I'm just curious. I mean, we're taking that on ourselves, the cost?
As I understand it, we are, the money is, since it's a reimbursement, if the only amount that's guaranteed is the 260,000 and change. And that's why I introduced it now, because if I understand what Jordan was saying correctly, you could authorize additional funds today, but that being said, I mean, you know, we're essentially, if we sign the agreement as it is, we take the risk that the committee may choose at a future date. When we do come out, just throwing numbers out there, say it costs us $25,000 to resolve the property title issue. We have 10, and then we've got that $15,000 hole, and we use all $260,000+ for the construction and to do all the other work that was on the scope. If this committee chooses not to backfill that $15,000, we're out $15,000. If it costs $67,000 like the other quiet title, then obviously we're out more. I mean, ultimately it's up to the board, to my board, to make that decision, but if this committee's not able or willing to act today, but, you know, it needs to be done, and I think there's enough community support for the project that I personally believe this committee would support a request should we have to come back later on and ask for more money.
Member Fowler?
Well, I would agree with Randy. I think and I hope that this board, this committee would has the consensus to finish the trail. That's my feeling. I could be wrong. I can't judge for anybody, but I like to believe that that's the case. An affirmation would be nice.
Yeah.
Well, I've shown my support of this by voting in favor of the trail. I'm not comfortable with just writing a blank check and saying
Understood.
whatever it costs, I'm going to approve it. My question is, as far as the presenting of the project, I believe it was the Feather River Parks District who presented the project to us initially.
Yes.
So it's your project that,
Yes.
that we're funding, so it's, you started it. So,
Right. I mean, the irony is that, as Director Carter pointed out, Feather River District has no dog in the fight, if
Right.
you will. I mean, we don't own any of the parcels, for that matter. We don't own anything on that trail for
Right.
the entire length east of the State Route 70 bridge. But we're among the leaders in maintaining it, because we often see that other people are either unwilling or unable to step forward. And that's kind of how one of the reasons why I requested, of my board, and it ultimately came forward to this committee, because I'm not one to stand on the sidelines and wait for somebody else to step forward. There's a community need, there's a community desire, there's a community benefit for the completion of this trail.
yeah.
And I think that, we're either leaders or followers, and I want to be a leader.
Yeah, and you have my, support in completing the project, but what's agendized, like Member Reynolds said, and what's here, I'm fine with putting an extension and signing an agreement today, and then, at the time that
If
there's
necessary,
funds, then obviously we don't need to sign a check today.
Right, understood.
Comment?
Yeah, Mr.
So, Marciniak.
Marciniak.
The SBF previously had provided a $20,000 grant to the Park District to complete the environmental work. It would seem to me that we should go back and look at that environmental work to see if these clarifications regarding ownership was addressed. They also worked with the city on it, which dropped some of the costs. The original estimate for the environmental was higher than 20. It makes sense to extend the contract. If Randy finds, as he begins his investigative things on hard dollar costs, and they're going to exceed the 10,000 that the other committee has provided, then he would come back and ask the steering committee for consideration and say, it looks like we're going to need 10,000 or 15 or 3,000.
Right, and then at that point have it properly agendized.
Right.
Correct, yeah. But I would recommend that we go back to that environmental report and determine if something, one would think they would have looked at all the ownership at that time, so. Okay.
Member Fowler?
That's what I would be.
I agree.
Okay, you're just in the queue.
Like
still.
I said,
Oh.
Murphy's Law.
Dave has a comment.
Member Reynolds?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying, and we do have to stick to the agenda. We
Right,
can't do
understood.
whatever we want. So, so that's what I would be comfortable with today is the extension. And I think that we've all displayed that we support this project. We're not going to leave you hanging out there. But we do have to be responsible with how we do it.
I get it.
So
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. Thank you. So I'd like to make a motion
Actually,
that,
can I make just one quick comment? Well, one, I think Bob's comment was really good about, this seems like it should have come up in the environmental work. And two, this is just a broad comment. I mean, this is a great project. I think the theater project is a good project. There seems to be a problem in terms of the due diligence on a couple of these things, getting all these things up front. So I think those of you who step forward to be on the ad hoc committee, but maybe that's a place where thinking about some of these things and making sure that the I's are dotted and T's are crossed before, and things change. I mean, I get that, but just from a process standpoint, it's hard when you go through and you award something and then you have to come back and now it's a different project with a different price tag that's not the one that you approved to begin with. So
I appreciate that, and isn't there, did we have, is there, I would imagine there's no title companies involved, no one here, no attorneys with arrows and emissions, or?
Well, and again, as Bob was saying, you know, the environmental work was done in advance. There was nothing that I saw that indicated a red flag. The trail exists.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like we're blazing a new trail.
Right.
So I honestly went into it, and again, I've got a public works background. This is not something I even anticipated. I figured we've got the right-of-way, prescriptive right-of-way. We've got cooperative property owners. I didn't know there was even an unknown property owner until I started talking to the county, actually about another matter. And then the discussion came forward about this. So, you know, like I said, it's a Murphy's Law thing. It's whatever can't go wrong will go wrong. And so it's
Well,
just,
we might find out that it's nothing, it just simply needs to be
well, the county's
addressed.
done
and
the
it might-
research. When they did I mean, I've seen the detail that was done when they did the Veterans Memorial. And they went back as far as they possibly could, and they did not determine who the owner was of this parcel.
You know, it may also go back to building the second bridge, because they had to do a lot of right-of-way issues because they left the old one in place. Clay Castleberry might be someone to sit down and talk to, because when they put the second bridge, they had to bump the right-of-way over,
Right.
and I'm sure they had to do more work on land, so that might be a good person to talk to.
I know Clay.
Bill Chef, Clay Castleberry.
All right, do we have, I know somebody has to be at a meeting, and myself as well. Do we have a motion on this?
I'll make a motion that we extend the agreement number 3270 as written.
Got a first and a second?
1 year. Extend it 1 year, yeah.
Who was the second?
So they technically have 2 years.
Right.
Okay.
It would go to 2021.
Gotcha.
Motion
passes.
carries.
Thank you.
Just maybe another quick comment. Just for peace of mind for everybody, that particular portion of the trail was the #1 item in the Feather River conceptual plan. So I believe that the steering committee, and not only the committee, but the community has bought into the fact that that part of the trail needs to be completed. It'll also provide a safety factor for the Veterans Memorial project, because right now it's kind of a haunted zone where people that shouldn't be there end up there.
I didn't catch who the second was on that motion. Fowler?
What was the
question?
Who seconded it?
Oh, I did.
Yeah, Fowler.
All right, we're moving on to staff, steering committee advisory members and staff comments. Mr. C?
Yes, would you mind queuing up the presentation, please?
Excuse me.
I put several slides together. Some of them are, it's an update on our recreation project, so I know there'd been a request some time ago for me to provide that. So wondering is if there's a time constraint, I could really cut that short if you'd like, or,
Go for it.
but it's probably about 5 to 8 minutes or so for the whole thing.
Okay,
5 minutes.
great.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right, well, first wanted to show everyone, in case you you missed it, back on the 2nd of April, we turned on our spillway. So I was down at the bottom when the water was coming down, and it worked. So nothing exploded or anything, and we were able to spill water. So it was pretty interesting to see that. Flows got up to about 25,000 at one point, and it's now shut off. So this is a slide, this is the main gist of my presentation here, because this is brand new information. These are the lake levels forecasted for this coming year. There'll be one more revision of this next month, but this pretty much tells the tale. The revision isn't going to change a whole lot. So you have lake elevation on the left-hand side on the y-axis there, and then the months that's the end of month storage. So you can see we're heading to a full or almost full lake coming up in towards the middle of May, or I'm sorry, middle of June or so. So it's looking like it's going to be a really good year. If you haven't been to the lake lately, it's great. We're about 875 right now, so it's neat seeing the lake up like that. It's a lot of fun to have the water right up there on the edge. So, but the key things that I always look for are the 775 elevation, because that's when we lose the I'm sorry, 780 was when we lose the boat ramp at Loafer Creek. So it looks like that's not going to occur until late in the season, probably end of September or so. So we should have Loafer Creek in through the full recreation season. And then, of course, the Lime Saddle boat ramp comes out of the water at about 7:11, I believe, is when they close that down. So, and that's not going to happen until way late in the season. In fact, it may not even happen this year. So, looks like we're looking at a really good water year this year. Inflow to the lake right now, this morning was about 19,000 cubic feet per second, and we're releasing 10,500 down the river. So, the rest of us just causing the lake to increase. Okay, and then onto the recreation projects. This is a slide just shows each box is a separate project. These are things that were initiated following the spillway emergency because of the closures over at the spillway. We engaged in the construction of a bunch of new projects or planning and construction of a bunch of new projects. Several of these projects have been completed, and some are in some process of either construction or design. And I'm not going to go through all of them. I just wanted to show some updates on a few of the highlighted projects. So this is the Bidwell Canyon boat ramp. You can see the upper stage 1 ramp, and then there in the middle of the picture is the stage 2 ramp. This is from 2017, so it's kind of the before picture. You can see the ramp is a 3-lane ramp with a dirt parking lot there at the stage 2. So the first thing we did was we expanded the stage 1 boat ramp. We put 2 lanes onto the ramp. You can see it's the cleaner concrete on the photo. And then the bigger part of the project was what you're seeing here. This is the extension of the expansion of the stage 2 parking lot. So I'm going to go back and show you. This is how it originated. You can see at the top of the ramp that was basically the end of the parking lot. So now you can see where the top of the ramp is. You can see how much the parking lot has actually been expanded. And another significant part of this project was to pave that entire parking lot. So the project is most of the way completed. We didn't get quite all of it done before the lake came up and flooded the project out. So we'll have to get back in this fall when the lake drops down again to complete the project. You can see that dirt area. I think they got the rebar in and they poured some of that over there, but they eventually got flooded out. So they'll have to get back in and complete that when the project when we come back in the fall. So, and we'll be able to maintain use of that boat ramp while they're completing the rest of the project. This is one of the other projects that we completed. This is at the Bidwell Saddle Dam. We increased the size of the parking lot, just about double the size of the parking area. Used to be difficult when there were a few horse trailers parked in there for another trail to come in and turn around. So we widened the parking lot and did some other improvements as well. This is the area by the outhouse. We increased did some improvements on the accessibility for handicap access. We added a shade structure, the picnic tables there, the horse watering trough. Planted some trees. There's a hand washing station there now, and tie-offs for your horses, a hitching post.
That's all that Alyssa did that one, right?
Yes. Alyssa pretty much did all these, or coordinated all of them. So this is at Lime Saddle Marina. One of the other projects that we're engaged in is improving access for both of the marinas at Lime Saddle and Bidwell. So this is at Lime Saddle. So it was kind of a steep slope to get down there. So we actually did some grade work on the slope and put some slope stability material in there. And we didn't get this project completed again because the water came up too fast. So when the water drops down again, we'll complete this. We're going to put a concrete matting on that access way. So it'll be a lot better footing to get down to the marina. And then at Bidwell, we had to re-engineer what our original design just wasn't going to work. It wasn't going to be feasible to do the project the way we originally designed it. So we're back in redesign on that. And again, that's going to need to wait till the water drops down to finish that project. So this is the parking lot at Bidwell over on the right. And so one of our other projects was to provide additional parking for the marina. So that flat area on the left, kind of in the middle of the picture, is what we developed. This project is pretty much completed. The parking lot area you see there, it's a gravel parking lot. is underwater now, but they did get that done before the water came up. And they're still doing some work on the road. So at the upper right part of the picture, just at the high water line, you can see that road right there. That's the pathway that's going to get you over to where the actual marina and marina parking lot are. And you have to go through the Bidwell campground to get down to this location. I put this slide up here. I didn't want to. There's no way you can read it, but I just wanted to point something out. This project, all these projects, has required us to evaluate the Americans with Disabilities Act, the handicap access at all of our projects, and so we needed to do an upgrade at many of our projects, including this one. And we didn't really have a good solution for a gravel parking lot with a kind of a gravel walkway to get over to the marina. So we actually needed to reevaluate the project, which held things up for a while, and came to a design over at the, as you're driving down to Bidwell Marina, there's a kind of a recreation hall that's on the left-hand side by the little parking lots right there. And so that's what we decided to go ahead and upgrade that. And so we had to come up with a new design for that area. And I just wanted to point this out. Sometimes, you come across things that you're not prepared for, like, Randy's project down there on the trail that delay things. And, you wouldn't think it would take so long to build a gravel parking lot out on the lake bed of Lake Oroville. But, sometimes these things come along that you just don't expect. So anyways, we got that resolved. We're in the process of doing those upgrades right now. So that's the construction work. If you drive down there by the marina, you'll see that construction. Okay, and then this project here, it's an upcoming project, hasn't happened yet. It's in design. We had to go back to the drawing board to come up with a different design. We're approaching the what they call the 95% review point on the plans. They're supposed to be completed probably by the end of May. And just for orientation, the white arrow down there, that's the existing Lover Creek boat ramp. And the circled area is where the new boat ramp is going to go, out there on what we're calling Lover Point. It's a two-stage boat ramp. It's going to, the upper stage is going to be from the high water mark going down. Here's just kind of a sketch of where it's going to be. So where you see it says subject to revision, that's the stage 1 boat ramp. That's the top one. And then there'll be a road that goes down from that. That's that kind of diagonal going down set of lines to a lower parking lot, and then there'll be a boat ramp off of that lower parking lot. Because of the lake levels this year, we're probably not going to be able to have any chance of getting that lower portion of this project done. Just the water's going to be too high, but we will be able to get onto the stage 1 and then come back at a later time and do the lower stage part of that project. And we have configured that to allow some overlap in the lower ramp and the upper ramp. So that way you'll have launching at both ramps, and also with the lower end of the main Lofer Creek boat ramp. So anyway, so that's coming up. That's going to be a big project, and I'm really looking forward to getting that one off the ground. Also, a couple other things we're engaged in. This is an annual project that we do. We build fish habitat at Lake Oroville. And so we use Christmas trees. We use brush that we cut for fuel load work or trail work, where we can get material, woody material. And so in 2018, we built a total of 142 structures. I was at the Saddle Dam at Bidwell Canyon near the boat ramp, and that's where this is here. And then also with the Afterbay, we built some structures out there at the Afterbay with Christmas trees. In 2019, we did 77 structures. Wasn't quite as much. We had quite a bit of material in 2018 because of a bunch of brush work that we did. So, but anyways, it's an annual project that we do. In case you're wondering why that stuff doesn't just float away when the water comes up, the picture on the left shows that we actually anchor those Christmas trees in these brush piles down to the lake bed using cable. And picture on the right, some manzanita brush piles that we built, and a bunch of fish that were around there, so it made kind of a fun picture there. And then fish stocking, annual project that we do. These are Chinook salmon from the Feather River Fish Hatchery. So we plant, this year we'll do about 120,000 or so coming up this spring. They haven't been planted yet. Out in the Afterbay, we've actually taken some steelhead from the hatchery. These are surplus steelhead, and I've already planted those. About 35,000 went into the Thermalito Afterbay. And the steelhead, the numbers fluctuate. There have been some years when we haven't been able to do that because we didn't get enough eggs. We can only plant fish in the Afterbay if it's surplus to what we plant in the river. The river always gets the first part of the allotment. But the last couple of years, we've had extra fish, and it looks like this next year we're going to have extra fish as well. So that's good. That was it. If anyone has any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. What's going on with the dam boat launch? And
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I left that out. The rising lake levels has kind of caught everyone by surprise, really. When we started this year in January, we were already planning out, 4, 5, 6 months and what work we were going to get done. So, the lake level, we were starting to think it might be a drought year, and you know what it was like in early January. So things have really turned around. A lot of the work that we thought we were going to be able to get done, we have had to delay till the water comes down. So it's caused us to do a lot of changing of schedules and rearranging of the way that they're doing the work up there. So we're still looking for summer of this year for reopening the spillway boat ramp. It's probably going to be staged. I think we're going to be able to get the top of the dam crest for pedestrians first. And so, again, that's going to probably be summer, but probably be a little bit earlier in the summer for that.
this summer?
This coming, so yes, 2019. I believe this week they are paving the top of the dam. Is that correct, Andy? Yes, okay, they started yesterday, so they've actually chewed up the asphalt on top of the dam. They're actually paving it. That was actually something they were going to do as one of the last things that they did after all the other stuff was done, but because they've had to change schedules, that's just one of the examples of a big change in schedule. So they're doing that work right now, and so just slowly but surely they're going to be getting things ready for that summer reopening. We also are in the process of getting the diversion pool, Burma Road area reopened. So that's on probably the next thing you're going to see reopen, and we'll be doing a media announcement to the public when that's ready, but within the next 2 weeks. I'm hoping it'll even be sooner than that, but.
That's why I had to quit jogging, was because the top of the dam wasn't.
Oh, really?
available.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
for your health, we'll get that back going.
There
as soon as
are
we can.
hundreds of people waiting to get back on that dam. They really are.
Oh, I know. It's a major recreation resource that isn't something that it just stands out to you till you don't have it. Then you realize how significant that feature is.
Yeah, I know. I said, damn.
I appreciate hearing about the diversion pool getting back up to speed. One of the things that we ran across the other day is Oroville, the community with 5 lakes. We didn't really think about it before, but we have 5 lakes here. How many other towns in California have 5 lakes? Diversion pool, After Bay, Fore Bay, South Fore Bay, and Lake Oroville.
Concal.
Well, we can go to Concal too, but I'm just saying within, a very short distance,
Why not?
we have 5 lakes.
Yeah, and the diversion and the fish barrier pool too.
Exactly. So that's a new future marketing thing I think is going to come up soon. So thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
And I have one last question about the mountain bike trails.
Yes.
What's the update? Because there used to be an amazing trail that went up both sides.
Yes. So
because I haven't been mountain biking because of that specific reason.
Well, the trail and the diversion pool is part of that opening that's coming up, but it's not the climb part of it that's going to go from the diversion pool up to the spillway boat ramp is not going to reopen right away. So that's going to be more tied to the schedule for the spillway boat ramp reopening.
Gotcha.
There's some work we're going to have to do on that trail to get it reopened. On the other side, by the switchyard area, we are partially completed on a reroute of the trail that's over there. I think I'd mentioned that last fall that there's the trail followed our maintenance road for a portion of it, and kind of went by the sewer ponds. It wasn't the nicest area, so because of some security features that we're putting in down there, some fencing, we had to reroute where that trail is going to go. We're actually building a real trail. So much more aesthetic is going to be in the trees. Actually, is going to go along the edge of the flume there, the Palermo Canal, for a portion of its route. So it's a much nicer trail. So we have the brush cut for it. We just haven't done the grade work yet because we're waiting for a cultural resources clearance from the State Historic Preservation Office.
Great.
So we're not expecting any problems with it. We just have to wait for them to concur with our findings.
Thank you, sir. I think that's it for you, Mr. C. Tim Haynes? I don't see him here today. All right. Jordan?
Yes, so my program specialist is a written report on there. It details the work I've done between January and March. But we also have a little addition. We are going to be passing out the completed Feather River conceptual plan to each of you. This is to be paired with regional fund strategic plan for you guys to make decisions. Okay, so this has been in the process since
I was chairman, which was
yes,
a long time ago.
at least 3 years it's been in the process. So it's a big deal that we have a physical copy. So we have one for each of you guys today.
All right.
And that's all I have.
Wonderful. Correspondence? Chamber of Commerce or Upstate Community Enhancement Foundation?
Those are just quarterly reports. So that's just informational for you guys for your, all your spare time for reading.
Right. Do we have any non-agenda speakers?
I do not have any speakers over here.
Do we have any members of this committee looking for agenda items to be agendized for our next meeting specifically? All right, well, this adjourns this meeting. The next meeting is Wednesday, July 24th, 2019 at 2 p.m. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Yes. Yes, we can.